And in the middle of this type of crisis, Nutricide is not a good book to read, right? It's not a logical choice. It really isn't. If you would have asked me, I would have said, nah, no Nutricide. I mean, you're not going to enjoy that book for this time. You know, it's a crisis. That book is more, if you just studying, it's just something you should read. That's it. It's not for a particular crisis. So it wasn't a logical choice. And I wasn't trying to attempt to get...
Hang on one second. I need that one more. Can you just repeat what you said one more time?
It's not a logical choice for this crisis.
Woo! Can I get it one more time? One more time.
Yeah, it's not a logical choice for this crisis.
I'm satisfied. Thank you, kindly.
Yeah, it's not a COVID-19 book. It's not. I wouldn't have told you to use this book for that. I wouldn't have did that. I mean, that's it. I'm mute my line.
Not a logical choice for a crisis.
COVID-19.
Woo! And I'm subtracting COVID-19. The same thing Andrew Young said. The sickness, the crisis is white supremacy. The same thing I said. If we had started reading this book in February of 1997, I would have said this book is trash. We started reading this book in 2005. I'd have said this book is trash. 2010, trash. Anytime that you are attempting to follow logic, trash. It just happens to be double whammy extra trash to be reading it in the middle of this when they have said repeatedly around the world, looks like diet-related issues might be connected to this, might make you more susceptible, they say. Comorbidities, they say. At that time, a book that's supposed to be about, hey, Mr. and Mrs. Negro. Oh, and that's another thing. The reason this book is trash is not because I'm not connecting with it or not comfortable. That's not it at all, sir. The reason this book is trash is because of the typos. It's not funny. We're in a crisis. It's not funny at all. The reason is because of the typos, the sloppiness, the poor editing, the lack of references, the lack of practical applicability, the name calling. I got a long list. Nowhere on that list. Hang on a second. Nowhere on that list is this book is trash because I'm not comfortable with it. That's not on the list at all. I've been very explicit, page numbers and all. And again, this is a book I'm reading. I'm having to sit through it multiple times. This is not just a one-time thing for Gus. This is like
double whammy
misery. Like I'm going to be punished in the middle of all of this for not making a logical choice during the middle of a health crisis.
Now you said it right.
There we go. There we go. Make logical choices. If you learn nothing else, make logical choices. Logic is critically important. Man. Woo! Did you have anything else, sir?
No, sir.
You sure?
Yes.
Okay. We could have been listening to Whitney Houston. Anything on our Thursday afternoon. We got to sit around and read The Nutritional Destruction of Black People by Dr. Llaila O. Afrika. Worst book ever. The Context of White Supremacy, Gus T. Renegade, in for another broadcast, hopefully to share logic, constructive information. Today's date, Thursday, June 4, 2020. So I have been told this is our book club. I'm almost ready to do the watermelon shuffle. This is our second to last study session on the worst book ever. Thank God. Hallelujah. Woo! We can just vanquish the Rona and get through 2020. Man, we can try and see if we can make some improvements in the world. Whew. Man, the audio segment at the beginning, Whitney Houston, Nutritional, Uncle Tom. So cool. Woo! I feel like that should be enough. Anytime I have to qualify an opinion about why this is the worst book ever, I have a lengthy list, but it called Whitney Houston and Nutritional Uncle Tom. That's end of story. I don't have to say nothing else about why it's the worst book ever. The audio at the beginning was from our book study from last week on this book. and we had a person who dialed in, a supporter of Dr. Afrika, say the same thing I said a few weeks ago. This is a conclusion. My opinion is not going to change. Anybody who calls in, writes in, talks in support of this book, again, not Dr. Afrika, this book, I would have to give them a strong side eye, wondering if they read it. Do they use logic? Are they going to call me and or other non-white people names? Like, I would be thinking lots of sinister thoughts. Anybody. It's like, oh man, that Gus doesn't know what he's talking about. Nutricide is the best book ever. Woo! Really? Victims guaranteed qualified, I guess, but so that was from last week. We had a listener dial in to share his views on this book and Dr. Afrika. I can only emphasize, follow logic. Wow. There are so many parts in this book that deviate from logic. I don't even know where to begin. Whitney Houston being a nutritional Uncle Tom is a good start, though. All I can say really for this week, other than being ecstatic that we only have to endure one more session of this book, thank God. The session this week was really incoherent, and I'm having to say that as a preface. I've said throughout that this book is terrible for a lot of reasons. The typos, the poor editing, it's not focused. It doesn't really give a lot of detail that you can use. This week that reaches new lows. So I've said frequently throughout the book that there are a lot of lists, right? I've said that to people who've listened consistently. So this week, the writing or the prose of the text stops and it goes more into lists and charts. So it will sound, the only accurate words that I can use, to me, incoherent. It will sound jumbled. It will sound as though it's just scattered and jumping everywhere, because it is. It's almost at times, or it's not almost, it is at times going from one list where it might be talking about abortion or alcohol consumption, and then it will go to herbs that you can use for sleep or Ritalin, where it's not connected at all, because it's just going from one chart to another chart. There's no more narrative per se. Sometimes he's not even writing full sentences because these are lists. So I'm just reading what's there. So sometimes I'm just reading fragments. That's why I'm saying, to me, it was incoherent. Like, wow, it was, I think the closest that I've been throughout the time of reading this book of just saying, wow, I don't want to read any more of this at all, because we're not even reading text anymore. We're just reading lists and charts. And it was difficult for me to follow. I have the book, so I can't even imagine for somebody, if you're just listening and you're hearing someone who is reading incomplete sentences from lists, and you go from talking about Ritalin to abortion to malt liquor, where there's no connecting thought about how all of this relates. If you can follow all of that, if it makes sense, whoopee. All I can say is, worst book ever. I'm so thankful. We will be done with this book next week. Ooh, 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 doing the watermelon dance. We could be listening to Whitney Houston. Nutritional Uncle Tom. Dr. Llaila O, Afrika, audio segment number 1 on the context of white supremacy. Lord, help us get through it.
Father, give us strength.
The homosexual plague and food. The homosexual disease is deliberately forced upon Africans by the junk food industry. Homosexuality is at an epidemic and plague level in African communities. Homosexuality is normal for the nature of the Caucasian, but a disease by African standards. Homosexuality and rap music are not an accepted part of hip-hop African culture. This plague is used to maintain male-female problems, spiritual sabotage, conflicts, divorces, single parents, sexually confused children, and to destroy African people. The junk food industry is the main creator and promoter of the homosexual plague. The junk food industry uses psychosexual packaging, sexual food shapes, hidden images of subliminal sexual intercourse with animals, homosexuals, and children, suggestive images of masturbation and oral sex, erogenous body areas, and embedded sex curse words in advertisements. They use sexual symbolism such as shadows, tunnels, hairstyles, landscapes, hills, clouds, water, and sexually suggestive language to sell junk foods. The synthetic chemicals and sex hormones in the foods stimulate the sex organs, body, and mind. This causes stimulating biochemical addicting foods to be associated with stimulating sex. In other words, the African becomes chemically addicted to sex. The synthetic junk foods can cause the corpus callosum to malfunction and degenerate. This denatures and perverts the biochemical ability to harmonize the left brain and right brain. This limits the African's ability to bond harmoniously with the opposite sex, which can result in homosexual tendencies. In experiments, the biochemistry of vegetarian gorillas and monkeys was perverted when they were forced to eat junk food and meat. The perverted biochemistry combined with living in a type of European colonialism caused them to become homosexual. Junk food, perverted biochemistry, causes physical diseases that can result in emotional, mental diseases which can lead to homosexuality. For example, diseases of the lungs can cause denial and fear, pancreas, lack of control, heart, irregular lifestyle, circulatory, high blood pressure, mood swings, liver, unstable personality, etc. Africans, biochemically perverted, combined with slavery trauma and colonialism, become easy prey for the junk, sex, and junk food industry. They are deliberately taught homosexuality is acceptable and systematically seduced by Caucasian heterosexuality into homosexuality by commercials. The hidden and obvious sex in the commercials is directed at the voluntary brain function, emotional mind, and senses. The voluntary brain's intellectual mind may say that there is not sex hidden in the commercials, but the involuntary brain's emotions and senses respond to the sex. The Caucasian culture miseducates, indoctrinates, and trains the senses to respond to their sexual nature. The food industry's use of sex hormones in foods, sexually stimulating colors, patterns, music, sex symbolism, masochism, sadism, and shapes is selling homosexuality and their culture. The sex is suggestive as well as sensual, such as penis-shaped hot dogs, candy bars, French fries, fish and breadsticks, the use of circles to symbolize the vagina, such as donuts, pizzas, Cheerios, round candies or grapes, cherries, for testicles, whipped cream on pies, ice cream in a cone, melted cheese dripping from a pizza, liquid caramel or chocolate dripping on or from a candy bar, a woman's lips sucking on a drinking straw, 2 ice cubes and a straw in a glass, soda pouring out the neck of a bottle, or an explosion to symbolize a climax, etc. The leaf of lettuce on a hamburger sandwich symbolizes the fig leaf. The fig leaf was mythically placed over Adam and Eve's genitals. Lettuce is not put on a sandwich for nutritional reasons, but for sexual stimulation. The African Scientist's book, Isis Papers, by Francis Cress Welsing, and a Caucasian book, Subliminal Seduction, by Wilson Bryan Key, can give information on this subject. The ancient heterosexual Caucasian cultures included homosexuality as part of normal heterosexual life. Today, their mind scientists classify homosexuality as normal and overeating as an eating disorder disease. Ancient European males had 4 simultaneous mates, which were the 1 breeder, so-called spouse, 2 prostitute, 3 lover, homosexual mate, 4 and concubine. There are still remnants of these mating-type relationships, such as love-sex triangles and orgies. The ancient Greek-Roman heterosexual males, females, would attend sex exhibition wrestling matches in the arenas, gymnasiums. They would select their homosexual partner by a pat on the buttocks. The pat on the buttocks used in sports activities is a homosexual gesture. In fact, Caucasians are still sexually attached to the buttocks. They measure each other's sexual ability by the movement and or shape of the buttocks and are constantly looking at each other's buttocks. Caucasians find that in a brassiere, the upper portion of the breast cleavage resembles cleavage in the buttocks. Therefore, the breasts are sexually exciting. Caucasians suck on each other's tongues because the tongue is sexually associated with the clitoris and penis. Junk food commercials use suggestive and subliminal homosexual symbolism of the buttocks, breast, and the mouth to sexually arouse Africans and sell junk foods. Homosexual behaviors are deeply woven into the fabric of heterosexuality. For example, women with dresses sit with their legs closed because in the past, homosexual men in skirts sat with closed legs so that they would not reveal the size of their penis to possible lovers. In fact, Caucasian women basically dress themselves like men so that they can be sexually appealing to Caucasian men. Consequently, they wear G-string panties and bikini underwear and bathing suits because they were worn by homosexual men in ancient times. Caucasian women wear the ear, vaginal, nose, and navel rings as a form of homosexual bondage. They shave their legs and arms and wear lipstick to indicate that they are available for sex. It is the Caucasian involuntary that believes that the highest form of masculinity is male effeminate behavior. Therefore, the more male in dress and behavior the Caucasian woman is, the more feministic. In other words, lesbianism is a high form of femininity and is attractive to the Caucasian male. Masters Ann Johnson's sex research indicates that homosexual fantasies are sexually arousing for Caucasian heterosexuals. For more information on homosexuality, a book such as Love in Ancient Greece by Robert Fleislier can be helpful. Ancient homosexuals would kidnap young boys, girls, during full moons and sodomize them as part of mating with them as a lover. This homosexual ritual was called a honeymoon. Heterosexuals still use moonlight for sexual arousal. The ancient Caucasians' sexuality, rituals, customs, taboos, and ethics are based on their social laws called the Law of the Caves, which they erroneously called the first laws of nature, human nature, nature, or the laws of the jungle. There were no jungles in Ice Age Europe, just caves. The Caucasian use the word jungle in reference to their society in order to inferiorize African culture, which makes their civilization seem superior. They also get subliminal perverted sexual stimulation with an imaginary hypersexed African savage by using the word jungle. Imaginary and subliminal homosexual themes surround their behaviors and heterosexuality. The constant junk food commercialization of homosexuality is nutricidal. An African who eats nutricidal junk food is economically supporting the homosexual plague. The Africans with signs and symptoms of homosexual exposure are those in constant social contact with a peer, friend, associate, or relative with the plague. Those exposed need treatments. Those with the homosexual plague need detoxification and the cure. It is mandatory for the homosexual cure that plague victims stop eating junk foods, attend an African study group, and male group regularly, abstain from sexually stimulating movies, songs, books, videos, dancing, and games, stop using European sexual curse words, do not masturbate, abstain from heterosex for 2 to 3 months, stop all homosexual activities and sex, use an African spiritual system, practice ma'at, avoid all personal and social relationships with homosexuals, use melanin-nourishing supplements, herbs, use a stress formula, use herbs to spiritually and physically cleanse the reproductive systems, use female-male herbal formulas, do a fast, be in constant contact with a detoxed homosexual mentor, take phenylalanine and chickweed, etc. This homosexual plague must be stopped. It has invaded our religious, politics, entertainment fields, social life, and children's classrooms. The homosexual mafia has developed political and economic power, which allows them to force their sexual perversion upon innocent African victims of white supremacy and slavery trauma. It is not the plague, but the Caucasian plague carriers and predatory parasite culture that needs to be stopped by all means necessary. The homosexuality, junk food addiction, and control of Africans is based upon debt. Debt is caused by drug or synthetic food, malnutrition, income taxes, loans, eating disorders, homosexuality, credit, mortgages, leases, etc. They make the African consumer dependent upon Caucasian society, sex, money, or medicine in order to pay a homosexual sex craving, economic debt, or nutritional debt. In the position of nutritional, sex, or economic need, the African tax consumer or junk food consumer can be controlled. For example, the Caucasian international banker hoodlums create the social conditions which cause the African to borrow money, to buy junk foods and material goods that he is made to want by sex commercials, media debt. The pharmaceutical cartels' nutrition-robbing drugs and the junk food cartels' nutritionless junk foods cause the body to be in nutritional need, debt. Debt makes the tax food consumer a perpetual slave to white supremacy. The African is biochemically controlled by whites and is therefore an addict. An addict constantly pays for a fix that never fixes anything. The Caucasian drugs, surgery, and medical system never restores the health stolen by drugs and junk foods, nor do the international bankers give back monies stolen by loans, taxes, usury, interest rates, and credit. Africans, in actuality, do not pay taxes for earning Caucasian money, but rent for using Caucasian money. The Caucasian own the money and can devalue it and or take it away from Africans illegally or legally anytime they choose. Africans rent Caucasian money, the continent of Africa, and all resources and goods, while the Caucasians have ownership. Caucasian money is a paper credit card. Every time an African uses the debt is paid for by African human and land resources. The sex, taxes, and drugs are a costly, perverted form of a surrogate African family. Historically, the African family controlled food, sex, resources, produced and provided herbal medicine, spirituality, social order, education, and protection. The Caucasian junk food cartel and international bankers take part of the Africans' wages and say it is used to sponsor the government, which provides the resources and health system that the African continent's civilization and family cannot provide. It is the white supremacists that militarily, politically, sexually, socially, nutritionally, and economically use institutions and media to stop the African holistically governing itself and the continent. If an African sees diseases, homosexuality, and health as separated, divided from politics, food, commercials, economics, and white racism, then that African is conquered by white supremacy. It is the creation of nutritional debt and economic debt that causes addiction. Addiction is the alteration of the mind, biochemistry, economics, mood, social life, and state of African consciousness that causes Nutricide. Nutricidal white sugar is the main addicting drug of the sexual commercials. It has many nutritional debt-causing synthetics. White sugar is a psychotic mixture of pig blood, bleach, acids, antibiotics, carbon dioxide, and sugar crystals. A combination of cheap, diseased scrap meat of pigs and cattle is used to get blood albumin. Contaminated blood albumin is put in sugar to flush protein particles out of sugar beets, sugar cane. The purpose of the sugar drug is to cause biochemical debt addiction. Aside from this, pork is used to make the sweetener aspartame. Pork sweeteners such as white sugar and aspartame help to create an unstable personality that can lead to homosexual characteristics. Caucasian commercials use homosexual symbolism, themes, rituals, and ceremonies which bond the consumer to debt-causing sugar. The African is simultaneously made addicted to Caucasian society, economics, medicine, drugs, sex, science, sugar, taxes, and control. The junk food international bankers cartel's purpose is to addict Africans. Their ritual and ceremonial usage of foods and monies creates an addiction craving for the nutritional and economic debt. They are constantly creating this. Their psychosis, combined with their rituals and ceremonies, is the basis for their avaricious dependency upon control. Control is the major symptom of their psychosis. White supremacy is an outgrowth of their psychosis. A book such as The Syndrome of Control by Lindsay Williams can give some information on their psychosis and cosmology. An African who attempts to borrow a healthy future with drug medicines is supporting debt addiction. The food eaten is the only guarantee of health. Drug medicine and or junk foods kill the body by creating a genetic nutritional debt. Natural food nourishes the body, which allows the body to live. Natural vegetarian food is medicine, and natural medicine is vegetarian food. The Caucasian worldview is expressed by their use of nutrition, homosexuality, medicines, media, economics, government, junk food, and diseases. Any relationship the African has with the Caucasians, parasites, cosmology is always one where the blacks give and the whites take. For example, the food, drug, bankers, cartels economic system is exclusively white only and built upon parasiting money from African laborers, businesses, athletes, actors, singers. For each dollar the peasant earns, the white nationalist food, drug, bankers, cartel earns at least $250. Seasoned Africans believe that they can use the European economic system to gain money to spend on black nationalism. However, for each penny that is spent on black nationalism, the white nationalists spend indirectly and directly dollars on white supremacy. The African in the white economic system is used as an indirect way for the whites to earn money for white supremacy. The Caucasian parasite's economic system has to be destroyed, or Ma'at economics used in order for Africans to be socially, nutritionally, sexually, and economically free. An African who participates in their parasitic worldview must be seasoned and ultimately destroyed. Nutricide. Natural foods is a holistic way to get out of nutritional debt and free the body. The sex-stimulating food commercials create and maintain eating disorder diseases. Eating disorders are uncontrolled impulse and behavioral disorders that result in biochemical perversion that causes behavioral perversion. Eating becomes a vicious cycle of controlled eating, then relapse into uncontrollable eating. Relapse can be triggered spiritually, mentally, physically, biochemically, socially, sexually, and or by food commercials. Most people with the disease never know that they have it, and if they do know, they never can stop eating continuously and or sporadically. People with eating disorders eat to relieve stress, tension, racism, depression, anger, worry, anxiety, attention deficits, and hyperactivity. Have eating binges, weight loss, diet binges, have sex hormone attacks, abusively use laxatives, colonics, chewing gum, hide food, constantly eat at movies, sports, events, while watching television, riding in cars or planes or subways, buses or trains, playing games at work, constantly eating health or junk food snacks, chewing gum, sucking on breath mints, drinking sodas, etc. They may have all these behaviors or a few and are in denial that they have an eating disorder. The food industry wants people to constantly eat so that they can constantly earn profits. With each craving for snacks and foods is attached the sexual signs and symbolism of homosexuality that is embedded in the subconscious mind by the heterosexually stimulating commercials. The commercials keep the diet out of order and the sexuality out of order. The African is simultaneously made addicted to junk food commercials, junk foods, junk sex, etc. The combination of the sex commercials, synthetic addicting hormones, and chemicals are holistically destructive. The combination of sex arousal stimulation of commercials and synthetic sex hormones in junk food bonded to the radiation in the junk makes homosexuality and heterosexuality and electromagnetic addiction. Food is radiated while being processed, and by the price scanning radiation stimulation being associated with food craving, music, sex, and colors. People crave radiation, and many cannot sleep unless their television radio is on and radiating them. If you turn off the TV while they are asleep, they will wake up because you took away their radiation radiation drug. They crave the radiation stimulation due to its association with homosexuality. Psychosexual stimulation, craving, and addiction of Africans is aimed towards homosexuality, which makes it another aspect of Nutricide. This is Nutricide, except it is called homosexuality. African sex organ, energy, and movement. Female sex organs, inside body, close together, move east to west. Male sex organs, outside and inside, equal air element, far apart, move south to north, move up and down. Caucasian homosexuality recruitment techniques. Homosexuals must constantly recruit or become extinct as a group. Promoting sex change surgery and hormones as normal. It is mutilation of the sex organs with a knife or synthetic sex hormones. Women dressing in ancient Greek homosexual clothes. Fashion industry controlled by homosexuals equals cross-dressing equals homosexual dressing. Advertisements and commercials that focus on buttocks. Non-gender specific dancing homosexual. Promoting heterosexual activity as violent or unstable. Sexual symbolic use of guns, ball games, symbolism of baskets, holes, and pool pockets as vaginas to be destroyed. Homosexual themes in elementary school storybooks. Sex words that have no gender that are applied to homosexuality. Go to bed, make love, sleep together. Homophobia defines people that reject homosexuality as somehow mentally ill. Songs, movies, soap operas, books, and sexual crime news reportage used to create hypersex and homosexuality as an outlet. Heterosexuals presented as having many relationship problems while presenting harmony in homosexual relationships. Non-gender equals unisex equals one sex equals homosexual deodorant, perfumes, tattoos, ear and body rings, clothes, hairstyles, and sports. Advertisements and commercials that focus on non-reproductive sexual behavior projected as normal. Women being called by lesbians' names equals guys, man. Homosexuality explained as acceptable, lifestyle choice. Advertisements and commercials that focus on exercise equipment marked with sex poses and homosexual symbolism. Double your pleasure, showing fun between same-sex homosexual theme. Homosexuals being idolized on TV shows, talk shows, etc. Drag queen dressing by black man equals homosexual subliminals. Job applications and tests for jobs are deliberately designed to cause homosexual ideation to score higher. Religious shows used to raise emotions and misdirect emotions by showing homosexuality as spirituality. Homosexuality pictured as a happy, normal life equals gay. Advertisements and commercials that focus on beer with white head of foam, sexually shaped foods and candy, penis-shaped candy bars with nuts named after men, lip movements suggesting oral sex, hot dogs placed in between the buns. Study reports that lesbians may have a higher risk of getting breast cancer. Lesbians may be at a greater risk of getting breast cancer than any others, according to a study found in the Journal of the Gay and Lesbian Medical Association. 3 factors contributing to a higher breast cancer risk for lesbians are a lower pregnancy rate, higher weight, and greater chance of having a biopsy. Dr. Stephanie Roberts, the study's lead author, and colleagues examined medical records of 1,019 women at San Francisco Women's Health Clinic, according to the Chicago Sun-Times. 42% were lesbians. The study found that 63% of the lesbians had never been pregnant compared to 17% of heterosexuals. Not having children increases a woman's breast cancer risk by between 2 to 6 times. Lesbians are at a higher risk of getting breast cancer for another reason because higher weight, especially after menopause, increases breast cancer risk. The study, according to the article, found that lesbians weighed on average 160 pounds, about 7 pounds more than heterosexuals. Homosexual addiction. Steps in treatment. 1. Bond to Ma'at, African culture and natural foods. 2. Confront issues of sexual abuse of others, rape, incest, etc. 3. Identify activities, feelings, and thoughts that trigger homosexual feelings and sex activities. 4. Confront emotional and spiritual issues concerning sperm, abortion, child abortion, infertility, fibroids, and prostate disease. 5. Heal relationships with self, family, friends, culture, etc. 6. Design method to change negatives to positives. 7. Evaluate achievements. 8. Follow treatment schedule, goals, relapse therapy, etc. 9. Stay in constant contact with mentor, detox homosexual, study group, female, male group, etc. Withdrawal crisis. Craving addictor. Depression. Denial of addiction disease. Stressor can cause relapse. Homosexual treatment, detoxification. Diet, no junk foods, alcohol, drugs. Supplement, beta-carotene, DHEA, evening primrose oil capsules, histidine, GABA, glutamine, manganese, melatonin, phenylalanine, pumpkin seed oil capsules, glycine, selenium, serotonin, tyrosine, vanadium and chromium, vitamins A, C, E, B6. Psychosocial treatment. Abstinence from heterosexual and or homosexual intercourse. Abstinence from sexual-related dancing, movies, songs, etc. Participation in African spirituality group, women's group, men's group, cultural group, study group. Mentor, talk with daily. Mentor must have empathy and or detox from homosexuality. Positive support from family and or peers. Abstinence from socializing and or activities with active homosexuals. Meditation, Egyptian yoga. Abstinence from sexual related words and clothes. Herbs, bilberry, catnip, chamomile, chaste treeberry, chickweed, echinacea, elder, false unicorn, feverfew, ginkgo, golden seal, gotu-kola, ibogaine, kudzu, milk thistle, pod arco, sarsaparilla, saw palmetto, St. John's wort. Juice, alfalfa, beet, burdock, celery, cherry, currant, kelp, lemon, papaya, pineapple. Factors in recorded history is a practice of European civilization. Is directly and indirectly sublime a part of European heterosexual activities. Social conditions creates homosexuality. Is a sign and symptom of European-caused slavery, trauma, cultural stress, population control, dysfunctional genders, relationships, and families. Is part of Africans trying to be accepted by whites, a form of self-hatred and hatred of Africa, codependency psychosis. Homosexuality is a disease for Africans but normal for Europeans. Science and addiction. Chemistry is the science of studying the activity of chemicals called elements, which are the building blocks for living and so-called non-living things. Elements such as carbon, hydrogen, sulfur, and phosphorus form atoms which join together to form molecules. Each element is a universe within itself and has a type of family structure. The way the chemist's kinship group sees the world and the family is reflected in his group's science of chemistry. The Caucasian scientist, in order to understand chemicals, first destroys the elemental family with heat or another form of energy. He does not study elements in their natural environment. Instead, he studies them in an artificial environment called a laboratory. The Caucasian scientist can only gain knowledge by destruction of Africa and African people. The more destruction the Caucasians produce, the more scientific and wealthy they become. Scientists act out their superstitions, rituals, ceremonies, and world in a laboratory by exploiting chemicals. No scientist can divorce himself from his group's worldview. They cannot become objective. This is a human impossibility. The Caucasian labels his destructive biochemical alterations, rituals, and ceremonies as science. In the food industry, Caucasians use the science of chemistry to destroy the natural nutrients of food by processing foods into biochemically altered food stuffs. Food stuffs are sold by fast food chains, sugar refineries, dairy, meat, fish, soda, snack, and flour mill industries. The destruction of food creates diseases. Diseases creates wealth for the disease industry. The food disease industries cannot be separated any more than can technology pollution. You cannot have one without the other. In order to change the food industry or any part of Caucasian society, the foundation has to be changed. Caucasian rituals, ceremonies, theories, and myths would have to be changed. African victims are addicted to Caucasian rituals, ceremonies, theories, and myths, which are erroneously called science, law, economics, nutrition, and culture. Caucasian-based thought and behavior are hazardous to African people. Processed food is synthetic manure dirt. The machines and synthetic chemicals in the food processing factory imitate the liver, pancreas, digestive enzymes, stomach, intestine, colon, and rectum. These machines chemically and mechanically chew and digest the food, which means they take away the food's nutrients and fiber. The end result of your body digesting and eating an apple is a processed food called feces, manure, a bowel movement, or scat. A processed food, by definition, is a bowel movement. Bleached white flour, white rice, white sugar, oil, and white grits are a processed bowel movement of a factory. These are waste byproducts of a factory's digestion, a foodstuff, food contraband, starvation food, etc. Caucasians have been a historically toxic people. For ages, they have turned natural foods into synthetic chemicals, chemically altering them. They used chemistry to invade countries and to control people. They used alcohol on the Native Americans, opium on the Chinese, and alcohol, marijuana, heroin, and cocaine on Africans. Caucasians have been addicted to synthetic chemicals such as sugar, nicotine, caffeine, salt, cocaine, vinegar, oil, opium, Valium, amphetamines, etc. They are addicted to the taste of burnt dirt, as in barbecue. They are addicted to rotten foods such as cheese, yogurt, buttermilk, beef jerky, rancid oil, salad dressing, and sauces, hardtack, beer, wine, as well as rotten cooked blood and pus of juicy steaks, chicken, pork, etc. Historically, Caucasians ate many foods based upon them smelling like urine and or feces. For example, cucumbers were eaten because they smell like semen, roasted animals smell like rotten decomposing human bodies, astapheta smells like farts, cabbage smells like salted fish, some cheeses and onions smell like human feces, tobacco resembles the smell like rotten urine, vinegar similar to sweat or an unclean vagina, fish similar to vaginal yeast infection. The more food is corrupted, i.e. made rotten, processed, synthesized, burnt, or smoked, the more they like it. Ironically, the more the African is destroyed, the more the Caucasian likes them. A likable Afropean is mentally and behaviorally processed. They are drugged and fermented. Negroes live on junk foods. Negroes are biochemically altered slaves serving white slave masters or searching for white masters to serve. Most of them worship Caucasian junk science, i.e. biology, chemistry, nutrition, etc. Synthesized foodstuffs cause mental and physical changes in children and babies. Babies have undeveloped immune systems while the elderly have deteriorated immune systems. This causes synthetic chemicals to be twice as harmful and addicting to these age groups. Biochemically altered newborn babies are born with diseased bodies because their parents' sperm, uterus, ovaries, and bodies were cesspools of synthetic chemical waste as a result of eating junk foods, taking drugs, and being vaccinated. Many babies are born as sugar addicts, alcoholics, sex hormone drunkards, and cocaine addicts and are severely biochemically altered. They can be addicted to toxic substances because of the biochemical trauma of cesarean section. Biochemically altered and C-section interrupts babies are prone to have emotional problems, allergies, learning problems, asthma, self-control deficiencies, suffer hypersex, and lack the ability to bond to parents and to African culture. Biochemically altered foods processed into junk food stuff are starvation foods. They lack over 90% of their natural vitamins, minerals, proteins, and fibers. They are especially low in B vitamin called thiamine. Thiamine, along with the B complex, is needed to control moods, violence, aggression, etc. Junk food stuff has synthetic toxic dyes such as red and yellow food coloring. Food coloring irritates the brain and causes allergic reactions. Meats are biochemically altered with nitrates. Nitrates cause mental illness, hyperactivity, and violent moods. Biochemically altered foods are addicting and cause a craving for the same synthetic chemical eaten. For example, an alcoholic craves alcohol. The biochemically altered child is addicted to and craves sugar, hormones, salt, nitrates, carbon, and other synthetic chemicals. A child in a state of craving will be illogical in thought, emotion, and spirit. They are going through food stuff withdrawal and need another synthetic chemical fix. Biochemically altered children are usually raised biochemically altered parents who live for the next synthetic chemical fix. They are continuously getting high off food, in withdrawal, or between fixes. They and their children have junk food eating binges. They are driven to take synthetic chemicals for headaches, pain, stress, constipation, energy, weight, fatigue, birth control, sleep, rashes, indigestion, colds, etc. It is these chemical people who decide that say it does not matter whether you eat junk food or not, because you're going to die from something. Then they proceed to die from a something disease. Some synthetic chemically caused addictions and diseases are less obvious but just as deadly. Irradiation of food is dangerous. Irradiation is the use of toxic radiation chemicals to preserve foods. Radiation causes disease such as cancer. Radiation-sprayed foods store low-level radiation. Irradiation destroys electrically positive charged protein amino acids such as arginine and lysine. Lysine is used to help stop infections, and arginine is used in reproduction. Radiation halts the cell's ability to live, protect itself, and reproduce. Radiation coloring and preservatives create deadly combinations. Preservatives are tasty forms of embalming fluids used on dead bodies. They retard cell and brain activity. Preserved Africans moved from chattel slavery to synthetic chemical slavery. Biochemically altered people are seasoned. They sing or rap junk food jingles that praise the tasty goodness of poisonous chemicals such as carbonated sodas. This is ironic because the lungs exhale in order to get rid of carbon waste produced by the digestion of foods. Africans are seasoned to drink carbon waste. Their minds and behavior are seasoned by commercials to practice direct opposite of health, i.e. disease. The slaves were seasoned to like the white man and the instruments he used to destroy their women, children, culture, and country. A seasoned, biochemically altered African has thoughts that take a chemical chain reaction response to ideas spoken by others. The synthetic chemicals in the body and brain cause reception of stimuli to be misdirected, misreceived, misinterpreted, refracted, or blocked. For example, the sound of music may cause sex stimulation, sex may cause violence, violence may trigger a euphoric high, a high may trigger homosexuality, and the sight of the elderly may trigger hate. African culture may trigger fear, fear may trigger denial of slavery, learning may trigger self-hate, etc. The nerves are saturated with synthetic chemicals in the food that is craved. The biochemically altered African reacts to artificiality and not reality. Synthetic chemicals stop melanin usage. This causes Africans to mimic Caucasian thinking and behavior. In other words, they act unnatural, unreal, and crazy in normal social situations. They get chemical stimulation from many sources. The biochemically altered African is a walking time bomb of diseases and mental confusion who may have illogical, emotional, spiritual, mental, and/or disease outbursts from the cyclic behavior of synthetic chemicals. Even water can be biochemically altered. Public drinking water is basically chemically chemically deodorized ammonia treated, bleached, and fluoridated toilet water. Fluoride stimulates passive docile behavior. It also destroys teeth and irritates nerves. Chemicals in antiperspirant deodorants stops the glands from working normally. Toothpaste contains bleach or salt, which denatures the nerves, bones, digestion, etc. Aside from this, the toothpaste does not protect the teeth. The chemical additives in digestive aids stop digestion. Therefore, they cause toxins to build, accumulate, and contribute to mood swings and constipation. Additives in cold, cough, asthma, and antihistamine remedies slow down and retard glands and the normal mucus secretion of the uterus, prostate, etc. Any chemical that stops, slows down, or builds waste constipates the brain. Africans get negative chemical stimulation from the toxic chemicals of microwaves, cellular phones, low-frequency radio stations, lasers, computers, television screens, etc. No benefit of Caucasian science come without destruction. The benefit and destruction of biochemical alteration and Caucasian civilization cannot be separated. You cannot have one without the other. For example, a seasoned African who learns to obey Caucasian rules simultaneously learns to disobey African rules, especially of nutrition culture. A seasoned African who is taught and supervised by whites is simultaneously being taught not to be supervised by blacks. It is built into Caucasian rituals and ceremonies. You cannot have one without the other. However, there is an alternative. Whole foods should be the diet of Africans. Natural foods establish the nutritional foundation for a healthy mind, spirit, and body. Before slavery and colonialism, America-born Africans ate natural foods, thought about natural foods, talked about natural foods, and imaged them. Natural foods are central to freedom. Africans must be able to image and talk about the natural foods they should eat. Africans image by thinking in pictures. A whole picture image gives mental, spiritual, and cultural meaning to ideas, events, food, herbs, and history. African written language is a whole picture image language which includes a spiritual symbol, action symbol, and phonic symbol. The foods that ancient Africans ate were whole foods, and their whole picture language described the food. The American-born Africans should be able to image the preparation of natural foods. These foods must be imaged with delight. Others in the family, such as babies, pregnant women, the sick, or the elderly, must be able to eat without harm. Therefore, the family should be the first consideration in African food technology. The traditional African family did not eat foods that could harm a baby, i.e. alcohol, salt, vinegar, grease, sugar, rotten food, animal blood, pus, and flesh, as well as cooked concoctions. These food stuffs harm God's temple, the human body. The ability to image natural foods in a natural environment was destroyed by the institution of slavery and colonialism. This started the perversion of the taste buds. Seasoning perverted our appetites, and television images of food continue the process. A natural foods diet can stop the chain of synthetic chemical addictions and disease. Africans who eat whole foods free of synthetics will no longer be a biochemical altered people who serve the slave masters synthesized food and disease. Africans on a natural food diet will bring an end to genocidal nutrition and regain control of their community, country, and culture. Seasoning for food. You can use your seasonings as a medicine and taste. Use about 1/8 to 1/4 teaspoon of herbal spices for every 4 servings. For a combination of herbs and spices, approximately 1/4 teaspoon of each herb and 1/4 to 1/8 teaspoon of spice for every 4 servings. For example, you may try 1/4 teaspoon dill seed and 1/4 teaspoon dry mustard on vegetables, or you may try 1/4 teaspoon basil and 1/8 teaspoon of garlic powder in soy burgers, meat substitutes. Herb seasoning for disease. Allspice. Digestion, gas, diabetes, stimulant. Anise. Digestion, liver, colic, tonic, colds, spasm. Basil, rheumatism, cramps, vomiting, mucus. Chervil, swellings, edema, diuretic, eczema, gout. Cinnamon, diarrhea, poliomyelitis, upset stomach. Coriander, stomach tonic, digestion problems, rheumatism, joint pain. Dill, indigestion, gastritis, croup, nausea. Fennel, laxative, diuretic, digestion, sores. Garlic, hypertension, infections, high blood pressure, worms. Ginger, nausea, cramps, meningitis, edema. Horseradish, dysmenorrhea, high blood pressure, diuretic, arthritis. Kelp, thyroid, goiter. Marjoram, headaches, acidity, colds, measles, nervousness. Mustard, gastritis, liver, rheumatism, digestion. Oregano, leucorrhea, colds, headaches, asthma, tonic. Paprika, sinus trouble, colds. Parsley, diuretic, dropsy, edema, colds. Pepper, neuralgia. Rosemary, colds, arthritis, memory, digestion, spasm. Sage, sores, bleeding wounds, depression, stops sweating, sore throat. Savory, ear trouble, colds, digestion, stimulant. Thyme, headaches, colds, hyperthyroidism, worms, loss of appetite, diarrhea. Turmeric, fever, colds, skin problems, diuretic, high blood pressure. Vanilla, digestion, gas, neurasthenia. Nutritional approach. Eat raw, whole food such as fruits, vegetables, grains, beans. Food should be eaten fresh and raw. Eat whole grains and lightly steamed vegetables. Dark green leafy vegetables and the juice of dark green leaves should be eaten generously. No dairy products, no fried food. No animals, no fish, no fowl. Dead food produces dead cells. Use fresh, raw, organically grown garlic if possible. Do not take drugs of any kind. No prescribed, over-the-counter, or street drugs. Drugs destroy the immune system. Herbal extracts and teas go directly to your bloodstream and work better and faster than pills and capsules. Blood cleansers, burdock, dandelion root, elecampamine, garlic, green vegetables, milk thistle, pleurisy, red clover, wheatgrass juice, spirulina, wormwood. Immune system builders. Spirituality equals helps utilize God's help. Exercise, the best immune system builder. Garlic. Vitamin C. Echinacea extract. Grapeseed extract. Pine bark extract. Yohimbal extract. Golden seal extract. Vitamin E up to 800 IUs per day. Ginseng. Lecithin. Lysine. Photine. Ginger. Glutathione. Creatine. Skin. MSM tablets and lotion. Lysine cream. Zinc cream. Yeast infection. Pau d'arco. Sleep. Valerian, catnip, chamomile, kava, passion flower, hops. Digestive enzyme. Tablets. Improves metabolism of supplements, herbs, and food. Medicine food. White folks thinking. The African peoples have been taught an unreal idea of how the Caucasian mind is psychologically structured. In psychology, Africans must follow the Ma'at principle, which clearly states that we must know and separate the real from the unreal. A children's story, be it in English or Latin, is not real, it is unreal. Sigmund Freud helped to establish the unreal idea of the Caucasian mind. He used the Caucasian children's fairy tale, folk tale for the foundation of their mind. He decided that each character in a story represented a fragment of their mind. This is similar to watching an animated children's cartoon or movie and saying the cartoon characters represent the true and pure psychological aspects of the mind and entire race's mind way of thinking. A Caucasian Greek-Roman myth is a story in which the characters have Latin Greek names. If the characters in the myth had English names, the myth would be called a children's fairy tale or folk tale. The Caucasian mind does not function like a fairy tale. A fairy tale does not explain the Caucasian mind. Sigmund Freud made up the idea of a Caucasian mind. Therefore, the Caucasians' idea of their mind and how their mind functions is totally unreal. It is a fantasy, an idea, or scientific fact based on a fantasy is a fantasy. If you use a lie to explain a lie, then what you are saying is a lie. A real idea of the Caucasian mind and how it functions can be obtained by a historical examination of their past behavior, family structure, and the way they treat each other and African peoples. History, more than anything, reveals the real mind of the Caucasian. If I were to tell you that the African mind is based upon and functions the same way as the characters in Cinderella or Goldilocks and the Three Bears, you would clearly see the absurdity of their psychology. The Caucasian mind structure, based on a fairy tale myth, is in itself crazy. It is from this Freudian psychological construct of craziness that the Caucasian explains their mind and their mental illness. Their mental illnesses are in itself a craziness based upon a craziness which maintains a level of craziness. The absurdity of this situation is that African peoples use Caucasian fairy tale psychology to understand the psychology of the black mind. They use it to find the solution to their own problems as well as their problems with the Caucasian peoples. This means that any solution Africans derive for overthrowing white supremacy, oppression, colonialism, white domination, and white racism will fail. Build into any solution that uses Caucasian fairy tale psychology will be the craziness of the unreal. A real problem cannot be solved with an unreal psychological solution. Context of white supremacy. Thank goodness we're almost done. So we have one more audio segment today, and then we'll have one audio segment, and we'll be all done permanently with this book for next week. The number is 605-313-5164. The code 564943#. Press *61 if you would like to participate. We cannot get done soon enough. Chapter 5, that's where we'll go for the second audio segment. Chapter 5. I can only say again, for me, I don't know if it was you all, but for me, this book got very incoherent during the section that we just read, and it gets kind of worse as we go because there's less structured writing and just more lists, charts, fragments, where the ideas are not really connected. As I said, I've felt that for the duration of the book, but it seems to intensify greatly as we get to the home stretch. I did leave out one portion on weight because it's in between two charts. Generally, when we read books for the book club, we do not read the charts. So this is sandwiched in between two charts, and this is so he was talking about the biochemically seasoned African and how they are impacted by junk food and such. And he switches. He has a chart here that's titled European Medical Superstition versus African Truth. And it takes up several pages. So in between that chart and him moving on to his next subject, which is cancer foods, he has a brief section: weight, over, waste, and lies. It reads, another lie in health is the Caucasian worldwide distributed normal body weight chart formulated in 1959 by insurance companies. The Caucasian false standard of normal weight is racistly applied to Africans. This is in direct contradiction to the facts that Caucasians generally have more muscle mass, while Africans tend to have less muscle mass and more skin surface. This means that Africans have a greater ability to cool themselves in hot weather. Caucasians, as compared to other races, have the least amount of skin pores, the most bodily hair, added to a larger muscle mass, tend to have more bodily heat, and lack the ability to be cool in hot weather. An overweight person can have excess water retention, or an overwaist person can have 7 to 15 pounds of feces caked, impacted, or coated in the digestive tract. An obese person has excess bodily fat, therefore a person can be overweight and have obesity. The insurance companies set the normal weight tables at a low weight per height ration. This causes many people to be declared overweight. An overweight person's insurance rate is higher. It was to the insurance company's economic advantage to falsify weight tables. The normal weight table was reformulated in 1990 to reflect the true weight for height of Caucasians. However, the vast majority of Caucasian health practitioners and drug companies still use the 1959 tables. This helps them to classify more people as ill and helps them to increase the amount and strength of drugs prescribed to a person. One little portion that we left out, now we got that in. I'll share a little bit from, check folks who wrote in about the text. I am so totally over this book. Let's see. One of our investors wrote in, greetings, Gus, the homosexual plague and food. In this section, Dr. Afrika posits a connection between consumption of junk food and homosexuality through sex hormones. He also theorizes that Caucasians promote homosexuality culturally through verbal and visual symbolism, music, and other media. Dr. Afrika also makes recommendations regarding conversion therapy for homosexual Africans in order to change sexual orientation. I wonder how effective his methods are. The homosexual agenda has been remarked about by Neely Fuller. Moreover, the emasculation of black males by the global system of racism, white supremacy has been a major theme on both readings in the C.O.W.S book club and guest authors. The Delectable Negro, top 10. The Man Not, top 10. Rethinking Rufus. Oh, wow, that's really recent. Mr. Fuller also emphasizes that he does not advocate harm being done to homosexuals. Number 2, the text states the synthetic junk foods can cause the corpus callosum, midbrain, to malfunction and degenerate. The word is corpus callosum. Let me spell it. C-A-L-L-O-S-U-M, which connects the third and right left hemispheres of the brain. Colostrum is a breast fluid formed by humans. The correct term for the midbrain is mesencephalon. I think I got it. Mesencephalon. I think, yeah. A part of the brain stem. This error has occurred previously in the text. Number 3, the reading seemed redundant since the dangers of white sugar, aspartame, biochemically altered food, processed food, and seasoned Africans were covered earlier in the chapter. Yep. Number 4, a number of more specific food recommendations are provided. That is true. He gives lots of charts in the book. I read quite a few because some of these are not charts. Some of what I read is just their lists. But he does have charts that give like specifics in terms of like herbs and all of that. Like I said, you should have heard some of that, right? I just read some of that. So you should have some of that information. But if you would like more, you can get the book. Specifically, we were just in chapter 4. And you can flip through and check out some of the additional seasonings, charts, additional information that he has, eggs, and he's got seasonings in there for that. Now, even that's a little odd because I'm just kind of looking through here. He has a big chart for seasoning for food, and he tells like asparagus. I didn't read this. It says asparagus. You can use lemon, dry mustard, marjoram, sesame seed, tarragon, blah, blah, blah. But he also has beef, and then he has seasonings for that. Now, I think, at least in this book, unless I've been paying attention, that he has recommended consistently no beef, right? No meat, no beef. Why would you then include seasonings for beef? He also includes seasonings for eggs. I'm not sure. And seasonings for poultry. I'm not sure why that would be if eggs, beef, and poultry are so heavily discouraged. Maybe that's to kind of set people up as they're transitioning away from those items. You can try these seasonings out as you're moving away from it, maybe. I don't know. I know I'm tired of this book, though. Woof. 605-313-5164, the code 564-943 pound. That is an important point about the incorrect titles on the brain. Just same thing I said before, an editor, and that's one of the things like where my patience is kind of done this week, kind of was the tipping point for me, although we could have been done a long time ago. Like, editor, try not to have a lot, especially if you want to come out and everybody is ignorant. White people are ignorant and they're dumb and stupid and ignorant and savages and, prehistoric. They don't know what they're talking about. And you got all these errors throughout the book. I can't even use the index for the book to find anything because it's wrong. Worst book ever. Folks who dialed in, if you have comments to share, line should be open.
Greetings, Gus, and to the callers. I would not be able to make a report on the first part because I was occupied. I could hear you reading, but I just wasn't able to focus on it because I was getting something else done at the same time. But I'll listen to the comments, and if I can, if something comes up that I can chime into, I will. Thank you.
I hope it was constructive, good sir. We didn't have a whole lot constructive to offer with this book, so hopefully you were getting something good done. And yes, perhaps we'll check in once the second audio segment concludes, or if you feel like you have something you want to add, we will be on the lookout. Let's see. Other folks who dialed in, if you have comments to share, lines should be open. Yes, sir.
May I be heard?
Yes, sir.
Greetings. I'm the caller from last week. In the beginning of the show, you made some comments about my logic because I enjoyed the book. To assume that I may not be logical because I enjoyed the book you did, and it's not very constructive. Also, just because I enjoyed the book does not mean I may call you names. In the beginning, when you played my voice, I didn't think anything was wrong with that. I thought it was okay. Then you went into that emotional part. Then you got a little emotional about my position about the book. Again, I often hear you speak about being constructive. That wasn't very constructive, Gus. I'll mute my line.
Before you mute your line, did I call you any names at the beginning, sir?
You just said you questioned my logic because
Did I call you any names?
No, I didn't say you called me names.
Okay, just want to make sure
I didn't say that.
Here. Just making sure. Okay.
Yeah, I didn't say that.
Okay, just making sure. I will say again the same thing I said today and last week. Anybody, this is the book that oh man, I thought this was constructive. I thought this was great. What I said was I would be looking at them a little bit sideways. This book, with all of the errors and typos and a lack of detail, name calling, this book, that's what I said. And now that we're almost done with it, absolutely. Anybody step up. Yeah, this book is great. It's constructive. I would be looking at them a little strange. Same thing I said before. Follow logic. Man, lots of logical problems with this book. Specific things from this week. And I can only say again, I'm tired of this book. Like, my patience is done. Like, having to read a book that I know is rife with errors, misspellings, flagrant contradictions, lots of things. All of this name calling. We got the Nutritional Uncle Tom. We got the Negro Pen. We got the sellout. Woo, even threw Coon in there when we were a few weeks back. Negro, we got the basic. They have to sit and listen to this for 2 months. Hang on, sir. And he did say Negro. Yeah. He said repeatedly in the text. Hang on, sir. I didn't interrupt you when you were talking. I would expect the same courtesy. I'm not interrupting anybody. I'll let you speak once I'm done. Okay. Thank you. Negro is in the text repeatedly. No name calling. To sit around and listen to a book name call black people for all of this time, wow. I'm not even necessarily in disagreement. The system of racism, white supremacy does a lot to promote incorrect sexual activity, really incorrectness in general, but particularly sexual incorrectness. We've talked about that on this broadcast a lot. However, that's not what we're supposed to be talking about in this book. I thought we were reading how Mr. and Mrs. Negro cannot eat themselves to death, and we drift off into all of this about homosexual behavior. Even if I take that, okay, because he does, weave in the food component, and there are others, who have submitted. This is important. racists might be using food to cause all kinds of sexual mischief. Even on Democracy Now!, they had Tyrone Hayes, who is a black male victim of white supremacy. He came out, this is recently, like within the last 4 or 5 years, he came out and said, hey, I'm a scientist. I study all this. It looks like some of these chemicals might be changing the sexual behavior of certain animals, might be doing the same thing to people. No argument there, but that would require a lot more detail. Like we've had some people, they write whole books just on that one topic, which I've said before. It's a lack of detail. Like if you just want to cover every single aspect of white supremacy, racism in this one book, that's about 400 pages maybe, you're really not going to be able to get into very much detail about anything. You're just going to kind of be hitting the surface on lots of things, which is what this book does. And that's one of many reasons why I found this to be very non-constructive, even with the homosexual component. If you want to talk about that, to have somebody discuss this and chalk most of this up to food and have no mention of sexual abuse that is rife within the system of racism, white supremacy, and maybe that might be a leading contributor in all this sexual confusion. The number of folks that get molested, raped, particularly the high incidence of this sort of abuse that happens to young children and how that ends up having a lifelong impact on males and females. We talked about that in Dr. Curry's The Man Rethinking all the books that the investor just mentioned. I think Delectable Negro, the number of children that get impacted by that, just that's such a major area of discussion to just have that kind of simplified to food and diet. You have folks who are vegan, plant-based, and they're still engaged in that behavior. Lots of things, many things contribute to that. Wow, what a lame book. I'd rather be listening to Whitney Houston. Let's see. There's some important contradictions. I don't really have a whole lot to say because I just want to get done. Let's just get done and pick a better book. Let's see. Some of the major contradictions I do want to make sure I get out. Oh, that's in the second. Can't even get that one until we get to the second portion because that is the second portion. So one I have to wait. Let's see. He says on page 329, the biochemically altered African is a walking time bomb of diseases and mental confusion who may have illogical, emotional, spiritual, mental, and or disease outbursts from the cyclic behavior of synthetic chemicals. Pause right there. In my view, this is just, there's not one non-white person in the known universe, including Dr. Afrika when he was alive, who can truthfully say that I've not been altered in an adverse manner because of the system of white supremacy. I don't care if you eat natural, organic, whole-based foods your entire life. Your mother ate natural, organic, plant-based foods her entire life. Your father, I don't care. If you're I think somebody says there's no way possible to be a victim, a subject of white supremacy racism, and say that you're healthy. Somebody says that. I think the person who says that, the book is referenced, suggested at the end of this text. So if that's the case, to just keep saying you got these biochemically altered Africans and Negropeans and nutritional, it doesn't even make sense. That's everybody. All now. That's something I've emphasized before. When we start getting in that language and way of talking as though it's you, non-white people who are messed up, you all that are eating the wrong foods and doing the wrong thing and not doing this, you all are messed up and walking time. Even that metaphor, you're a walking time bomb. Like, wow, bombs are violent, dangerous, explosive. Now, I mean, you can take that position, but I would say that would be any victim of white supremacy racism, particularly if you got somebody that's walking around name-calling other black people. I would for sure say, whoa, this person could be dangerous. That name-calling frequently leads to conflict. Let's see. All of this about the treatment for the title of this book is Mr. and Mrs. Negro, They Ate Themselves to Death. That's the cover art on the text. Title changes depending on which edition you have, but the cover art, bam, that's what I got. If that's the case, I would rather have more details on that as opposed to your treatment strategy for converting homosexuals. Not saying that there's not a value for that, but that seems like something that could be a whole nother book with a lot more detail. In addition to even the first step in the treatment, bond to Ma'at, justice does not exist in a system of white supremacy. Incidentally, even as he talked about the homosexuality component, I said, wow, we've talked about this a few times throughout the book. The black people, victims in the U.S., are not eating the same foods, are not subject to the exact same component of white supremacy racism as the black people on the continent. If that's true, the way that homosexuality is operating, being promoted here, would have to be a little different than how it's operating on the continent. More detail. That's what I'm saying about more detail. There's not really very much detail. If you just want to kind of go skimming over lots of subjects and dropping things, along with all the errors and typos, skimming over a lot of things, that's great. Not really helpful, and particularly not helpful for what I was looking for with the cover, thinking that this would be a book more about diet and food. And even incidentally on that point, with these herbs, so he spent a good chunk of time in the section we talked about this week with homosexuality, that's incorrect, how it's promoted by racists through food and other means. He goes from that. We got the homosexual addiction and steps in treatment. We go from that to herbs. That's on 322. So we have homosexual addiction, steps in treatment. That's on 319 for me. 322, herbs. There's no transition to how we got there. There's not even an explanation in terms of, well, what do you do with these herbs? What quantity of these herbs? Are there substitutes? Let's say I go to the store and I can't find echinacea. I can't find chickweed. I can't get, ginkgo. If I can't get these, what would I sub them with? How would I incorporate? Is this for everybody? Is this just a part of the homosexual treatment? That's why I said it's so poorly organized. I'm not even really sure how to use some of the information that is presented. Again, some of it also just because it's jumping from so many different subjects, it's not really focused and well organized on much of anything in particular. Lots of reasons why I say this book is not logical, and it's not even helpful in terms of helping listeners. When you write, there is a method. There is a procedure for writing to maximize comprehension for your readers, to make sure they get the information. They went through all this trouble to purchase your book, borrow your book, sit down and read it. You want to make sure that they get the information, not to just throw a bunch of slop on the pages and hope for the best. We're almost at the end, so you can judge for yourself what we got here. I'll stop there. Other folks have comments that they would like to share. If we missed you completely, you should definitely make sure you spoke up. The caller who dialed in, you said you had comments to share. Now, proceed.
Yes, in terms of the name calling, Negro just means black. It just means black. Ignorant means just not to know. And Uncle Tom, used as a slur, is actually incorrect. Uncle Tom was a person by the name of Josiah Henson. And Josiah Henson was not exactly a Tom. So these things that you mentioned aren't really names. Now Coon and Sambo, yeah, those are derogatory terms, and I wouldn't use those. And nor do I use ignorant, Negro, or Uncle Tom. So those aren't really names. They're just they're derivative. Like again, Negro is just black. Yeah, that's all. I'll mute my line.
All right. Within the context of this text, this is not a matter of judgment. Within the context of this text, you are incorrect. He has consistently not used Negro as a substitute for black. He, like many other people, has used Negro in a pejorative sense. Most of the time in this book, he's been using African and black, and that's what he says at the beginning, that he uses those as synonyms. Not Negro, and I can just wait. I'm not going to waste my time and energy to flip through this book to find Negro again, but it's in here many times, and it's not unusual. Many of the folks, we have some of them as guests on this program, they use Negro pejoratively. They mean Negro when they're talking about other black people who are misbehaving in their view, doing something they don't agree with, eating the wrong foods, involved in white people's religious practices or food practices or whatever it is, that is consistent, and that is throughout this text. I have not sat here for 2 months and seen the word Negro and just thought, oh no, that's, and even beyond Negro, Uncle Tom, no sir, that was certainly pejorative last week. Name calling is calling anybody a name they do not call themselves. I've never heard Whitney Houston say, oh yeah, I'm a nutritional Uncle Tom. I've never heard Bill Cosby say, oh yeah, I'm a nutritional Uncle Tom. I've never heard Anita Baker say, oh yeah, I'm a nutritional Uncle Tom. And in fact, I've never heard a black person call another black person and say, oh yeah, I'm not name calling. I'm not name calling at all. I'm showing you some love. You're my black brother, my black sister. This is a venerated black. No, sorry. And again, I would kind of look at somebody a little sideways. Like we didn't sit here, like I didn't narrate this text for the last 2 months, hearing Negro PN, Negro, Uncle Tom. We even got fictional Uncle Tom thrown in last week. So no, in the context of this book, you are incorrect, and generally you are incorrect. Most of the time when people use the term Negro, pay attention. You can use context. Do they just mean they're talking about someone else who's classified as black? Because that's kind of antiquated. Most people don't even say Negro now when they mean black. They don't even have Negro on the census anymore. They took that off. Other folks have comments they need to get in? Grant, we are a little bit closer to the end. Did you have something else you need to get in?
Yes. Negro is used.
Do you have something else?
By
I'm done with that.
too.
I'm done with that. We're done with that. Do you have something else you need to get to?
No, I guess you're right. This is what this is about, I guess.
Doesn't have to be about I'm right. We read the book for 2 months, so it's in the archives. Either I'm correct or I'm not. I'm saying in this book, Negro, the context has been flagrant. Anybody else have comments they need to get in? Second audio segment, worst book ever. We are picking up chapter 5, very beginning of chapter 5. I think this is the last one. And oh, there's one more. I think we're at least getting all the way through chapter 5 for today. Context of White Supremacy, Dr. Llaila O, Afrika. Nutritional destruction of black people. Give us strength, Father. Chapter 5, Chemical Madness. At some point, like right away, we are going to have to deal with the destructive effects of fast food, TV, integration, and village breakdown. Kiari T.H. Cheatwood. Chemical Madness. Deficient junk food diet increase, life expectancy decrease. Average life expectancies at birth. The map shows countries where the average life expectancy at birth is within the age limits stated below. The graph shows the percentage of the total world population born in countries belonging to the different groups. 38 to 46 years. Developing countries in Africa and Southeast Asia have the lowest average life expectancy figures. This is related to the nutrient-poor diets, synthetic chemicalized food, and Caucasian land control in Africa. List of some African countries in the 38 to 46 years life expectancy group: Mauritania, Senegal, Mali, Guinea, Sierra Leone, Liberia, Ivory Coast, Upper Volta, Ghana, Togo, Niger, Zambia, Malawi, Nigeria, Chad, Cameroon, Gabon, Congo, Zaire, Angola, Namibia, Botswana, Zimbabwe, Equatorial Guinea, Mozambique, Somalia, Ethiopia, and Madagascar. 66 to 74 years. North America and European countries are in this group. Denmark, Iceland, Norway, and the Netherlands all have the highest figure of 74 years. This verifies the Caucasians' deliberate attempt to exterminate Africans. The EPA estimates that chemicalized indoor air is 1,000 times worse than chemicalized outdoor air. Some of the possible effects of indoor air pollution are bronchial constriction, cancer, depression, dizziness, drowsiness, eye, skin, and nasal irritation, fatigue, headaches, memory loss, pulmonary irritation, gynecological problems, respiratory irritation, shortness of breath, slow poisoning. The EPA estimates that 20% of all workers will get a major illness from chemicalized indoor air pollution. Common contaminants in your building are animal dander, bacteria, benzene, carbon monoxide, carbon tetrachloride, dust, dust mites, formaldehyde, mildew, mold, noxious fumes, odors, pollen, radiation toxins, smoke, static electricity, sulfur dioxide, viruses. Contaminants can originate from adhesives, air dust, appliances, cleaning supplies, concrete, construction materials, drapes, dry cleaned clothing, electric cables, furnaces, gas burners, new fabrics and carpets, paint, glues, particle boards, pets, plywood, wallpaper. Do you live in a sick home? Do you work in a sick home? Do you attend a sick school? Noise pollution. Noise pollution. Noise above 60 decibels is toxic, drains melanin, and can cause mental fatigue. Research has shown that performance errors can occur within 10 minutes of exposure to 100 decibels. Some common noise levels. Whisper, 20 decibels. The average home, 40 decibels. The average car, 70 decibels. The average airliner, cabin, 85 decibels. Subway station, 105 decibels. 12-pound cannon blast, 300 decibels. 100 decibels is considered very noisy, while 140 is painful. Go up to 160 decibels and deafness occurs. Another 40 to 200 decibels can kill. 70 decibels, loud radio in an average house, a noisy restaurant, ghetto traffic. This type of noise makes it difficult to hear telephone conversations. 80 decibels, road construction site. This sounds twice as loud as 70 decibels. 90 decibels, loud shout, busy street. This sounds 4 times as loud as 70 decibels, is annoying, and causes neurological damage after 8 hours of continuous exposure. 100 decibels, subway station, running printing press, train horn 33 yards away. This noise is 8 times as loud as 70 decibels. 110 decibels, sheet metal grinding, loud music. This is 16 times as loud as 70 decibels and requires shouting to be heard. 130 decibels, pneumatic chipping and riveting, machines from the operator's position. This is 64 times as loud as 70 decibels. Shouts can't be heard. This noise level is considered intolerable. Toxic noise sound levels can damage the ear over time. Ritalin, a type of crack cocaine. Stimulant medication side effects. Common initial side effects: abdominal pain, anorexia, easy crying, emotional, oversensitivity, headaches, irritability, weight loss. Less common side effects: anxiety, decreased social interest, depression, dysphoria, or exaggerated feelings of depression and unrest without apparent cause, hypersensitivity rash, conjunctivitis or hives, impaired cognitive test performance, insomnia, less than expected weight gain, nervous habits, rebound attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, rebound overactivity and irritability, withdrawal effects. Rare but potentially serious side effects: depression, growth retardation, hypertension, motor tics, psychosis with hallucinations, tachycardia, Tourette's disorder, stereotyped activities or compulsions. Side effects reported with Silert only: chemical hepatitis, choreiform movements, dyskinesias, lip licking or biting, night terrors. Psychiatric terms, meanings. Psychological terms are political and social tools used to manipulate and control blacks. They define blacks as dysfunctional. This makes blacks beneficial for Caucasian society. Aggressive tantrum equals aimless, thrashing, flailing limbs, wiggles legs. Attention deficit: easily distracted, loses things, fails to finish task, doesn't listen. Dementia: forgetful, memory problems, developmental arrhythmic disorder, difficulty understanding and solving mathematical problems. Drapetomania: a mental illness which causes a slave to think about running away from the plantation or attempt to escape from freedom. Dysesthesia Ethiops: a mental illness which causes a slave to be disrespectful or disobedient to a slave master. Dyslexia: fails literacy test, misspells words, cannot read, puts letters backwards. Hereditary violent genetic disease: protesting, acting militant, or confronting white supremacy or expressing doubt about white authorities. At-risk social conditions which genetically make you inferior. Hyperactivity: impulsive, constantly moving, excess talking, impatient, makes excessive mistakes, excessive running, and or climbing. Hypoactivity: withdrawn, passive, plays alone, talks very little, seems lost. Oppositional defiance disorder: acting independent, having self-identity. Pain disorder: having headaches, backaches. Passive tantrum: frown, cries, grimaces, beats on objects, furniture, throws and or breaks objects. Persecution complex: getting into confrontations with others, getting into fights. The above terms are political and social and are used to manipulate and control black folks in order to make them dysfunctional and an economical benefit to Caucasians. Hyperactivity attention deficit disorder supplements. B vitamins equal nervousness, stress, mood, swings, fear, depression, anxiety, concentration, tantrums. Calcium: nervous, stomach, tingling, arms and legs, cramps, inattentive, irritable, angry, sleep disturbance. GABA: anxiety, stress, pain, depression. Ginkgo or gotu kola equals memory, concentration. Glutamine equals memory, concentration. Glycine reduces aggression, manic depression, sugar substitute. Magnesium: irritability, confusion, nervousness, jerking muscles, noise sensitivity, constant eye twitching, muscle spasms, tremors, pain. Niacinamide equals calmative, improves circulation. Phenylalanine equals turns into tyrosine and dopamine. Pyridoxine equals calmative, irritated nerves. Taurine equals anticonvulsant, anti-anxiety, eye problems. Tyrosine equals stress, anxiety, depression. Vitamin E equals slowly enhances learning. Zinc equals fatigue, lost taste, alertness, decreased appetite, healing. Hyperactivity and ADD misconceptions. Misconception 1. He'll outgrow it. This is often stated when the child is young. It is a lifelong behavioral and thought process which the child can adjust to in a positive manner. Misconception number 2. The ADD child just needs a good spanking and firm discipline. Many parents have failed trying this and few have been successful. There are specific appropriate behavioral techniques which are consistent non-punitive punishments that work over 80% of the time. Misconception number 3, the ADD behavior and thought patterns cause a dysfunctional lifestyle. There are adults who have ADD who adapted to it and have developed ways to coping with effect. Chemically induced teen suicide. Blacks in the USA are number 1 in the world in black teen suicide. The below vitamin deficiency causes suicide and behavioral problems in school. 1. Low vitamin B intake causes mental and emotional imbalances in teen. 2. Teen junk food diets are deficient in vitamin B content. 3. They addictively consume sodas, junk foods, and alcohol, which biochemically reduce already critically low levels of vitamin B in the body, dehydrate the cells, and cause nutritional starvation. 4. The signs of vitamin B deficiency are characterized by delusions, disorientation, mood swings, and depression. These symptoms are consistent with early beriberi, a thiamine and vitamin B deficiency disease. 5. The major symptoms of vitamin B deficiency are anxiety, fear, depression, hostility, rage, vagueness, forgetfulness, instability, craving for sweets, mental confusion, vague fear, mindless sex, irritability, and a constant feeling that something dreadful is about to happen. Black children and adults. I want you in prison. Blacks nutritionally deficient, consuming chemicalized junk foods, and legal and illegal drugs are at a higher risk for crimes and prison. Court is where the negative behaviors caused by malnourishment from junk food goes on trial. The food industry is found innocent, while the black consumer on junk food is found guilty and sent to jail. The food industry's nutritional crime is turned into a misdemeanor or felony crime. McDonald's uses addictive synthetic chemicals, sex hormones that stimulate hypersex, sublime sex conditions. Their commercials create self-hatred in black folks by using minstrel clown character commercials that psychologically help black consumers to hate themselves have an increase in sales. White spots on black folks' skin. The effect of junk foods, meat, drugs, sunlight deficiency, synthetic chemicals, and nutritional deficiencies causes melanin deficiency, cellular and food waste constipation, sunlight deficiency, retention of waste in body due to salt addiction, radiation toxicity, lymph gland congestion, excessive sex or sex stimulation, loud sounds, toxic liver, unable to metabolize food properly, body too acidic to use nutrients, fungus infections, severe vitamin C and D deficiency, potassium deficiency, micronage of cells, vitamin A, B, and or iron anemia. Partial birth abortions. The murder of late-term unborn babies by sucking out brain. The black mother is drugged and the murdered baby parts are sold. Guided by ultrasound, the abortionist grabs the baby's leg with forceps. The abortionist delivers the baby's entire body except for the head. The baby's leg is pulled out into the birth canal. The abortionist jams scissors into the baby's skull. The scissors are opened to enlarge the hole. The abortionist punches a hole into the base of the skull with a scissor. He spreads the scissors to enlarge the opening. The abortionist removes the scissors and puts a suction catheter into the hole and sucks out the brain. With the catheter still in place, he pulls the fetus out to the uterus of the mother. Murder tops the causes of death among infants. Parents on junk food and legal drugs murder more infants. 10,370 injury-related infant deaths were reported between 1983 and 1991. After murder, which accounted for 23% of the deaths, the leading causes were suffocation, 18%, car accidents, 15%, fires, 9%, drowning, 7%, choking on food, 7%, choking on objects, 6%, other intentional injuries, 11%, and injuries undetermined intent, 4%. Infants were more likely to die of injuries, including murder, if their mothers were young, unmarried, and had little education, and their diets tended to be junk foods, nutrient deficient. New York Post, Sunday, April 18, 1999. Looks to die for. Methacrylate, MMA, can rip nails off fingers, cause nerve problems and severe rashes, and over the long term hurt kidneys, livers, and fetuses. Federal Food and Drug Administration officials ruled in the early 1970s that MMA is poisonous when used on nails. Acrylic nails, often called sculptured nails, should cost $35 to $40 a set. MMA nails usually $20 or less. MMA has a super strong, sweet, fruity smell that's distinct from other acrylics. The manicurist has to severely abrade the surface of the nail until it is very rough, called the shag carpet look, to get the MMA to stick. Fake nails made with MMA are almost impossible to get off, even after soaking them in acetone for hours. Orange chemical liquid. Orange juice, commercial orange juice, can have dangerous amounts of the following. 1. Water extracted soluble orange solids. 2. Dehydrated water extracted soluble orange solids. 3. Commuted oranges. 4. Dehydrated commuted oranges. 5. Dehydrated extract of commuted oranges. 6. Juicy orange pulp for manufacturing. 7. Dehydrated juicy orange pulp for manufacturing. 8. Non-carbonated flavored beverage. 9. Concentrate for flavored beverage. 10. Powdered flavored beverage. 11. Orange drinks and diluted orange drinks. 12. Concentrates for orange drinks. 13. Powdered orange drinks. 14. Orange flavored drinks. 15. Concentrates for orange flavored drinks. 16. Powdered orange flavored drinks. 17. Concentrated water extracted orange juice. 18. Orange blend. 19. Orange juice drink. 20. Orange drink. 21. Concentrate for diluted orange juice beverages. 22. Orange juice drink and blended orange juice drink. 23. Concentrate for orange juice drink and for blended orange juice drink. 24. Powdered orange juice drink and powdered blended orange juice drink. 25. Concentrate for orange drink. 26. Concentrate for orange flavored drink. 27. Powdered orange flavored drink. Condom, rubber coffins, latex, and chemical poisons. Condoms cannot prevent emotional pain. Condom failure rate for pregnancy prevention is 13 to 31%. Condom research. Latex condoms may have voids, approximately 5 microns in size, that occur naturally during the manufacturing process. The powder in condoms causes cysts and tumors. The spermicide causes cancer. The condoms fail to prevent 1 in every 3 HIV infections. Sexually transmitted viruses and bacteria can pass through the voids in a latex condom. The latex condom causes chlamydia, pelvic inflammatory disease, PID, and cancer of the female reproductive system. Disease by blood type. Africans are higher in type A and B with a normal level of type O, have a moderate Rh negative level, very rare Rh, and Rho. The body's low melanin content, white blood cells, sacrifice themselves in order to protect the high melanin content red blood cells. The synthetic chemicalized junk food diet causes specific diseases amongst blood types. Chemical malt liquor and beer. Methanol, ethanol, butanol, isobutanol, white sugar, acetaldehyde, histamine, phenol, propanol, isopentanol, cobalt, lead, iron, carbon dioxide. Viagra, citrate salt of sildenafil, increase and disturbs blood inflow to brain, glands, eyes, lungs, heart, liver, kidney, prostate. Chemical, nitric oxide. Viagra cause abnormal increase in nitric oxide. High concentration is narcotic. Burns and irritates skin. Decreases oxygen. Explodes cells. Used in explosives and fertilizers, nitric oxide. Side effects: headaches, infections, urinary tract infections, peptic ulcers, arthritis, chest pain, mood swings, frequent urination, incontinence, multiple myeloma, blood cancer, hypotension, diabetic problems, hypertension, weakens immunity, lung and nasal congestion, blurred vision, dizziness, back pain, heart problems, depression, thirst, increases breast size, colds and influenza, sickle cell, flushing, nerve problems, bleeding disorder. Almost done. Almost done. So thankful. I'm overjoyed. I was going to say I might play Stevie Wonder next week. Don't know if he's a nutritional Uncle Tom too, but I think it'll be justice. We'll get the last word from when Dr. Afrika was here. I think she had a few comments or so about his visit. That'll be next week. Thank you, White Jesus. We are all done. Next Thursday, new book, Overjoyed. This week, one thing I do want to make sure I emphasize, man, oh man, I hope folks have heard Gus T say over the years, value your time and energy. The system of racism, white supremacy, encourages non-white people to waste their time on a lot of things. Netflix, reality television programs, anything really, other than focusing on replacing the system of white supremacy with justice. But they will do a lot of things to encourage us to waste our time. Value your time. No one on this planet has infinite time. Value Whitney Houston. Value your time and energy. That said, one of the reasons that I am not paying, if you go back, this was predicted. Not like Dr. Welsing predicted that, President Trump was going to be in the White House, but I said when we started reading this book, very early on, I could tell, oh man, this is a poorly written book. I'm not going to enjoy this. And if I have to read this, I'm going to be very salty by the time we get to the end, because this is going to be a much greater investment of my time and energy to narrate and then have to come and host the program and wade through all this nonsense. I said that at the beginning. I begged if we could get somebody to at least narrate. Then I don't have to narrate, so maybe I'll be a little happier. Probably wouldn't have had much of an impact, but maybe it would have helped a little bit. I said all that at the beginning to get to the end. I just want to go back to rewind to the portion about Negro really quick. I didn't say I could be wrong. I spoke definitively. I said the caller who said that about Negro, I said you're incorrect. Time and energy. I said also today, I get to repeat myself a few times. I said conclusively, anybody, you are pleased. You think this is a quality book. Enjoyed it. Well written, constructive information. I would look at them suspiciously. I would question their logic. That's how much is incorrect about this book. It's not a question of do you connect to the information. There's a lack of logic, an appalling lack of logic in this book that's manifested in a number of different ways. Time and energy. I wouldn't want to invest my time and energy grappling with somebody around basic tenets of logic, particularly if it seems like they really are holding on to some of that illogic. I would question how much time and energy I would devote to that, and I absolutely would not want to devote time and energy to this book. So going back to Negro, definitive. So this is the foreword, the very beginning of the book, kind of setting the groundwork, foundation for what this here thing is about. Dr. Afrika writes, in this book, I may refer to African Americans as Africans. Basically, the health of all Africans, diaspora included, is controlled by diseased Caucasians. He didn't say anything about Negro in that portion. African American, Africans. I think someone had pointed that out before, that synonyms, what I said. Now you get to the bottom of the page. This is the foreword. And he writes, this Caucasian information control creates a scientific plantation and information colonialism. I use some Caucasian references within the text for those Negroes still on the information plantation. Now, he doesn't explain the term Negro, so we don't have a great definition of him. Oh, this is what I mean when I say Negro. So we'll have to use context. So you can look at the context of that sentence and decide for yourself. And all the other sentences in the text where Dr. Afrika uses the word Negro and conclude, does he just mean a black person? Or is this a form of name calling? I'll read the sentence one more time. I used some Caucasian references within the text for those Negroes still on the information plantation. Great sentence. I'll take a double there since I had a double whammy of repulsiveness having to listen to and narrate this text. The lack of logic. That's the thing that I keep coming back to. There's a lack of logic in this book. There's a lack of understanding accurately what racism, white supremacy is, how it works. There are a lot of inaccuracies in the book, inaccuracies in the text, period, which is a problem, which is repulsive for me. Strive for accuracy. Some idiot says that all the time, strive for accuracy. I fall short of that mark myself, but strive for accuracy. Within all that, the logic, we are on a global plantation. Everybody is still on the plantation of white supremacy racism. I don't know anyone, whether you are eating a raw, organic, whole foods diet every day, 15 pounds of organic spinach a week, you're still on the plantation of white supremacy racism. The number is 605-313-5164. The code is 564943 pound. Press star 61 if you would like to participate. I'm so glad we're almost done. I can't believe it. One more session. Woo! Worst book ever. 605-313-5164. The code 564943 pound. Press star 61 if you would like to participate. Folks that are with us had a hand up. If you didn't get to share at all during the first audio segment and you have commentary, make sure you get your hand up. If you have comments, we'll definitely make sure you get time in. But if not, we don't have to hang out for the full hour. But if folks have commentary they want to share, you didn't get to speak the first time, definitely press star 61 and we will get you on the line. Retired firefighter, I think our other caller, you all should be with us. I'll check for other folks as well.
Yes, sir. Sounds like more of the same with the text. My thoughts on the terms Negro and Uncle Tom. I'll first start with Uncle Tom. I'm aware of I could be wrong by using this term, but I'll use it anyway because that's the only thing I can think of right now. I am not the smartest person that you've heard today. Understand the folklore behind the term Uncle Tom that was understood through history with that exact person. But the context within this literature was talking about it from a negative standpoint, period. Once again, and I've said it before about this book, because I was alive and not well. I was alive during the period when this was the different speakers and the reason for having non-white black people, and I would say, they were, people who came to spend their money to listen to a person. They were there. This was a part of the rhetoric of that result into literally on what is called name calling to anyone who is either in unagreement and or not to the speaker's perceived level of understanding of the system of racism and white supremacy, they would be subjected to name calling. I would say Malcolm X was a proprietor of it. He actually, before he was murdered, was apologized for doing so himself. That is an actual recording. You can, anyone who wants to confirm that can listen to it themselves. And the term Negro, from my understanding, was first scientifically dissected by the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. In turn, with his understanding of it, and primarily talking to the members of his organization, the Nation of Islam. And in turn, people like Malcolm X, who were spokespersons for the organization, basically shared that information, that scientific information about the negative terminology to the term Negro to the greater masses of non-white people. I would say definitely in this part of the world, it probably went even further than that, because I hardly ever hear it now. And when that term is utilized, especially during that time and today, that is not meant to be a compliment at all. It's not meant to be a compliment at all. It's meant to be either a quote unquote joking insult or a deliberate, mean-spirited insult, one or the other. And that's a reality. That's not just my opinion. That's a reality. Thank you. It needs to cease and desist. I put it that way. It needs to cease and desist and only call a person by the name they would like to be called.
No name calling. No name calling. The only point of emphasis I would add, again, why Gus T is especially disgusted with this text, has been for weeks now, might be months at this point. It is 2020. I mean, you want to talk about the gulf between racist man, racist woman, racist child, and victims of white supremacy. Why Neely Fuller Jr., whose book is recommended in this very text, who also says no name calling, why he says we are pitiful, primitive, and stupid. Pitiful, primitive, and stupid. 2020, in the middle of the COVID-19 crisis, you got space launch, all kinds of technology in the midst of all of this, and we are having to go over no name calling. Maybe we can not call each other coon. That's like grade school, right? I thought that's what you do in first grade. Just call him. His name is not Coon, Timmy, Susan. His name is not Negro. Her name is Francis. Lord have mercy. Enormous gulf. Not to mention the typo. Oh, that's one thing. You heard me repeat certain phrases and words exactly. That wasn't an accident. That wasn't Gus T just being goofy. Those were typos where sometimes he just repeats the same word in the book. Other folks, comments, questions, they want to make sure they get in.
Can I speak again?
Feel free.
Oh, it was somebody else? Go ahead.
Well, I hadn't even got their line unmuted yet, so they can take a moment to get settled if you want to finish your thought.
Okay. Man, I just forgot about my thought. Let me see. What was I about to say? Oh, mixed in with the incorrect grammar. There is some strong evidence of some helpful hints that I think I understand on those who were stating, and I would say they are rightfully so in their stating that the book helped them. If I had the physical book with me, and I had one of those yellow markers, there is some things in that book that I can underline in that book, yellow in that book, that can be quite helpful. That I either didn't know prior to, and then what I would do scientifically is match it with logic, and then state, Dr. Afrika, is saying something that I did not think of prior to, and it makes logical sense. But unfortunately, it's from what I've been hearing, because I don't have the physical book in front of me. It's just mixed with too many things that would get in the way of the logic of what he's saying, and it was just, in some cases, it's just not constructive as far as, like I said, the name calling and whatnot. As far as they can say, it's unnecessary. But almost every time that you make a book reading portion, I can hear some things that do make sense that I hadn't thought of. As far as it tells me that he has knowledge about how this particular narcotic or drug is, what it is, and why it's destructive to the intake of non-white people, especially, in this case he was talking about children. Comparable with people like Dr. Umar Johnson, who mentioned about what's that drug they give children?
Ritalin.
In Ritalin, and what he just mentioned about Ritalin, and Dr. Umar calls it legalized crack, which I'm okay with that. It's like a metaphor, but I'm okay with that because I would say it is somewhat of a connecting equivalent between the two. In itself, I was suggested to give that to my offspring, and I refuse to do it. I refuse to do it. He's sitting about 2 feet from me right now on the computer. But nevertheless, yeah, that's the what I can see that is potentially constructive in the books. Thank you.
Much obliged. Retired firefighter. Red in Ohio should be with us if you have commentary to share.
Hello. Thank you for allowing me to share. Hello, everyone. I was also, I'm glad the retired firefighter mentioned it, about the whole Negro being used in the pejorative sense. I was thinking the exact same thing about Malcolm X, and even I could even picture looking over some YouTube videos of him either doing interviews or having speeches or giving speeches, and that was one of the things that he would say, well, those Negroes and stuff like that, and that was not in a good sense. The most recent time I've heard Negro being used in a positive sense was in the Beyonce song Formation, because she says, I like my Negro nose, and she said I like my Negro something and my Jackson 5 nostrils, something like that. But that's the most recent time that I've heard Negro being used in a positive sense. But to the book, like the retired firefighter as well, I have been able to pick out a few things, but it's not consistent. And like he was saying, you have to have a highlighter or something to be able to pick out like the few things. And I was actually thinking about it in percentage-wise, like maybe like 30 to 40% of the book, if you really focused, you may be able to pick up some good things. Even like there was a part with malt liquor, and it just sounded like he was just listing the chemicals in malt liquor. And I'm like, okay, I guess that would be good. And then you basically have to go and research it yourself, the Ritalin part being crack cocaine. I didn't hear the first segment, so that would have been interesting to listen to the herbs. There was the part about the chemicalized indoor air is 1,000 times worse than chemicalized outdoor air, which I guess, that makes sense because it's concentrated. Usually, unless you have a nice circulation, your air is just going to kind of in the house stay stagnant. And I think he said that was from the EPA, so at least that was one white man reference. I also picked up on the redundancy of some words starting in the chemical air section. There was cleaning supplies, and there were some other words, and then there was also insomnia. And I assume when he was speaking about, there was I forgot what it's called, that erectile dysfunction, Viagra maybe. I think it was lover instead of liver, as far as it having some type of effect on maybe the liver instead of, or maybe it had an effect on the person's liver. I don't know. The part, and I think maybe I missed it because I don't know if I just wasn't listening close enough, but there was a part about the sounds and the decimals and stuff like that. I don't know if at the beginning of that section, if there was a mention as to why he was going to go over the different decimals, like 30 decimals for a whisper, and then it increased with like machinery and stuff like that. I know at the end of the section, it was, he kind of, I heard him talk about how that was detrimental, but maybe there was mention of it before. I was a little bit confused. I did want to ask a question. I just want to make sure I understood correctly. When he was talking about the different disorders, I think there was the oppositional defiance disorder. One of the characteristics, it sounded like he said having self-identity. Maybe I misunderstood that, but that kind of didn't make sense to me. I thought having some type of self-identity was a good thing unless you were self-absorbed. I don't know if maybe that was the proper word. And then more confusion when this portion of the reading was talking about abortions and then like the scissors and picking out part of the brain of the fetus, and I don't know, I just kind of got lost there. I'll mute my line. Thank you.
Much obliged. Read in Ohio. Oppositional defiance disorder is on page 359 of the book from me. And this is what I mean, where detail, I've said that throughout, and it was especially acute in this week's section of the reading. There is not a lot of detail. There isn't even like writing. There's not even one sentence associated with oppositional defiance disorder. Okay? This section, it's just and that's something else I've said throughout this text. He just gives lots of lists. There's not really much detail about, any particular topic most of the time. Sometimes he'll stop and give a little more detail, but frequently he will just present things. When I mentioned anti-gravitational travel, and there's no detail, much less reference. It's not even, explained. All he has is oppositional defiance disorder equals acting independent, having self-identity. all of this is listed under psychiatric terms, meanings. Psychological terms are political and social tools used to manipulate and control blacks. Didn't say Negroes. They define blacks as dysfunctional. This makes blacks beneficial for Caucasian society. And then he goes through his list, and it's the same format. He just will give a term and then will give a list of a few characteristics, but they're not even, that's why I said some people write whole books where it would be a lot more detail. So I could give you my view. My interpretation would be that, you know, some black children get defined as oppositionally defiant or having oppositional defiance disorder for having self-identity, for acting independent. You're not supposed to do that if you're a black child. You're supposed to do what we say. You're not supposed to have an identity. We tell you what your identity is. You're not supposed to be thinking independently. We tell you what to think. Like a black child who's displaying those qualities, as you said, that they would generally be a good thing, they get categorized. But I mean, that's what I mean why this book is trash. Now, that's just my interpretation. I might be wrong, but I'm just guessing. It shouldn't be. And if you want to contrast a book that's in my top 10 that talks about some of these exact same themes, the indoor air pollution, Harriet A. Washington, A Terrible Thing to Waste. There is no portion of her book like this. None. Where you just have not even a sentence worth of explanation, a fragment of explanation. That's what you got, a fragment. You would have gotten maybe a whole chapter on this in one of her takes. Matter of fact, you did get a whole chapter because she talked about drapetomania and some of these various and medical parts. I just had the wrong book also in my top 10. She has a whole chapter about drapetomania and how they weaponize these medical disorders. It's not just a fragment. It's a whole chapter. And that's what I mean. That's the difference between why this book, or one of many reasons why this book is trash. And I am so excited. It's going to be Kindling going up next week. Burn, burn, burn. One less copy in the universe. And the other thing, so we get pages of fragments, no sentences. That's why I said this section was really incoherent, because it's not connected. It's not, written out prose explaining anything. It's just fragments. Term, fragment of an explanation. Hopefully you get it. Red missed it. Maybe she's a, plantation Negro, imbecile who doesn't understand. So we got psychiatric terms, meanings. That's on 358. 360 is hyperactivity and ADD misconceptions. That is 3 short paragraphs and done. Takes up barely half a page. Very next page, chemically induced teen suicide. That's 1 page with 5 bullet points. You do get sentences there. The very next page, black children and adults, I want you in prison. You get a half page. That's what I mean. Like, you're just getting little snippets of him jumping from idea to idea, and you're not even getting details to go along with it. That's why I said, like, this is a waste of time. I would much rather just get one book on one of these topics. I thought we were just getting one book on the nutrition, but we didn't even get that. You could do one book and go into a lot of detail on one of these, as opposed to giving no detail, no reference, and a lot of errors and name calling, going over, 1,000 different subjects. Jack of all trades, master of none. I hashtag that with this book consistently. And we got another major typo, and then that's what's like the embarrassing on 387, right? So on 386, it's chemical, malt, liquor, and beer, where he just, as you said, lists the chemicals that are in beer, not in any detail, like cobalt, metal, digestive problems. And then it's on to the next chemical. You have to go and do research if you want to know more about all this. So that's on 386, and it's basically just a graph. That's normally something I wouldn't even have read the chemicals, because it's basically just a graph. But on 387, so we got Viagra, no detail, just hopping from subject to subject. We started with the decibels and all of that. The subtitle, so in big type, the biggest font on the page, and bold-faced print, so this jumps out at you. Increase and disturbs blood flow to brain, glands, eyes, lungs, heart, liver, kidney, prostate. So in bold-faced print, the biggest typeset on the page, nobody looked at that and said, oh, wait a minute, Dr. Afrika, I think you meant liver there. Just, switch that I up. All right, all good. Nobody? And never mind. Embarrassing. Worst book ever for many reasons. The decibels, all I can say is the title of this chapter is Chemical Madness. Chemical Madness. So noise pollution counts, I guess. Noise pollution, I think that might have been included in Harriet A. Washington, A Terrible Thing to Waste. I think because she talked about the bus depots and having a lot of travel and noise, that is important to be able to have a quiet area. I think she did talk about, that's not exactly chemical. That's not exactly chemical. That's not exactly chemical. So I don't know why that was included in Chemical Madness. Yeah, I don't know why that was included in Chemical Madness. Noise pollution is a problem, but yeah, I don't know why that would be in the Chemical Madness section. Let me see if I can flip back. Does he give any detail? Yeah, he doesn't really give any. I did think it was interesting. I didn't read it because he has parentheses, but I'll share it. So he says the average car decibel is 70 decibels. So let me back up a little bit. So the average home, 40 decibels. The average car, 70 decibels, in parentheses, and some black homes and schools. Next, he has the average airliner cabin is 85 decibels, in parentheses, ghetto street noise. No, I didn't read those, but in my opinion, I've said throughout, let me just go back to the front cover again. You have what looks to be a black crow or buzzard on top of a tombstone. Here lies Mr. and Mrs. Negro. They ate themselves to death. Now, I said from the very beginning that I thought that was kind of anti-black, and that I thought that spirit, because that's on the front cover, that spirit would pervade the book. In my view, there it is again. Like, you don't think white neighborhoods are crowdy? They don't have noise in white neighborhoods? Like, really? It's just ghetto neighborhoods that have all this excess noise that's comparable to an airliner cabin? Only black homes and schools are noisy? Columbine, when they had that shooting, that wasn't noisy? Worst book ever. The anti-blackness is stifling. And I have I have the book for one more week. I have the physical copy of the book. I am burning it. I would not dare share this book with anybody. I have not highlighted anything constructive. The tidbits that are constructive, there are way better books with much better detail and references and no typos that I can read, where I'm not going to be called names and I don't have to hear Whitney Houston called a nutritional Uncle Tom or anybody else. All I got is a book full of nonsense and name calling. One more week and it's going to be kindling. Woot, woot, woot. Anybody else have comments they need to share?
Got your point, Gus, your different points. And I would say that just the subject of non-white black young people who are teenagers committing suicide, that subject deserves a whole book unto itself, let alone talking about, I think you said it was only voted about a half a page or a page, something like that. I mean, that's something that is, unfortunately, is too common on this planet today as we speak.
Amen. Agree 1,000%. And yes, a half a page. That's what we got for suicide. I do want to add just, that's important. That should not be glossed over. That because I know you talked about personally knowing folks who committed suicide, and this was like recent, like extremely important, particularly given everything that we're going through right now, where they're out of school, most of them, I think, even at the collegiate level, and yeah, all the chaos that's happening right now. Much more than a page. The contradictions, I thought there were some important contradictions. Like, he has charts a few times in here where he recommends different like lotions that you can use for the skin. He had said before, like, we shouldn't be using lotions. Like he had that big section talking about not greasing the baby and how Caucasians had this superstitious practice of poor hygiene and using sheep fat and lanolin to coat their skin and perfume and all of this, as opposed to having hygiene and just bathing with soap, and that they encourage us to put all these concoctions and greasy, slimy things on our skin and lotion and all this. And, you know, you should take care of your skin from the inside by eating correctly. I thought he had said all that before, which, again, that's the type of thing that I don't dispute. I agree, right? Okay, no problem. If you want to moisturize your skin, I guess, whatever. But eating correctly being the hallmark of it. Eating correct food. Eating correctly, eating whole foods, fruits and vegetables, drinking water. Man, being able to drink water that hasn't been poisoned and polluted, that can do a whole lot to take care of having great, radiant, melanated skin. They talked about that, the folks in Flint, Michigan, how it damaged their skin having all that poisoned, how could it not, bathing in all that poisoned water and what have you. All of that said, he comes back later on in the section that we read this week, and he talks about different lotions and what have you that you could possibly use. And I said that before about he gave out recommendations for seasoning for the meat and poultry and eggs even. And I said, that's, kind of contradicting what he said in the text. Anyway, he also has a big chart on that I did not read just because, like I said, it's a chart and we generally don't read charts for the book club. So if you get the book, if you have it, or if you come across it at some point, you can flip to page 371 and there is a chart that takes up a couple pages and it just lists ingredients. It's not sentences, and it doesn't have to be because it's a chart, but it just lists like the different chemicals and what have you that are in like hair relaxers and no-lie conditioners, some shampoos, some conditioners. It just lists the chemicals, kind of like with the beer that Astar noted. No, I'm not noting it as incorrect. I'm just noting that I did not read this section. It's a chart, and that might be something that you want to check out in the book, just if you're interested in more information, just about reasons to not chemically mutilate your hair, something that we've talked about on this program before. He also has a form in the book. I'm not sure if this would be valid where you are, but it's an affidavit, a declaration of vaccination exemption. I am not sure if this would be valid. You would have to check because this book, or at least the version that I have, was published in 1993, and they have changed a lot of these laws. I know just in California, and a lot of times these are state laws, so you'd have to check to see where you are in terms of your state or your part of the world. But I know, like in California, in the U.S., they just changed the laws recently for these vaccines to make this sort of thing much difficult, to have this sort of form to declare yourself exempt or your child as being exempt from these vaccinations. White people are making it difficult, and I mean, woo-wee, with the COVID-19 situation. Wow, if they get a vaccine, I seriously doubt that this type of paper is going to be enough, especially for travel or maybe even for certain jobs. Maybe for, like I said, for travel and that type of thing. Might not work. But it is in the book. He does have the form. It is Affidavit Declaration of Vaccination Exemption. I guess you could try to print it out if you'd like. It looks like a form that might have to be notarized or would have to be notarized. But again, you would probably have to check because I'm not sure if it would work. White people have been changing and making it more difficult to exempt yourself from getting these vaccines. And they've been talking about that a lot over the last 2 to 3 weeks in terms of people not wanting to get the vaccines, even black people particularly. And then on the very next page, he has the same type of form, and it is a religious exemption from immunization, and that same would apply. Might be a great form to have, but I'm not sure. You'd probably have to check in terms of your state laws and even updates, because these laws might be changed and adjusted like any minute now, depending on how this plays out. So, anything else folks want to make sure they share, get in, comments, questions, suggestions? He includes footnotes on page 384, the section where he's talking about condoms and how they are potentially dangerous, ineffective. I've heard that information before. Seems like it might be valid. But he has footnotes, 5 of them, just for this one page, which was kind of staggering. I read the portion at the beginning where he says he generally does not include references and footnotes in the text. In my opinion, I would much rather, like when you talk anti-gravitational travel, more detail, footnote or 2 would have been nice. There are several other points in the book where having one footnote would have been helpful, or one reference, and just for the condom portion alone, he has 5 references. I just don't understand. I would be, if it's, you're not doing references, then, let's not do them. If you're going to do references, then let's do references. I appreciate references. I think I've said that many, many times throughout the years that we've had the book club, Harriet A. Washington, references. We found other books just by folks having references. I think we just finished Dr. Sylvia Hood Washington, packing them in. References, because she didn't just talk about violence against black people. Dr. Afrika has the portion in this very book where he talked about white women participating in lynchings, where I said, oh man, that's great. It'd be great to get more information on that, but he didn't have any references. Could have been a book that we could have read next up. No references. Dr. Sylvia Hood Washington, she talked about violence and black people being bombed in Chicago. She had lots of references. I think she had a whole page almost of books where you could go and do additional research and be more informed. I see a tremendous value to that. Everybody satisfied? We good for the week? We'll assume folks are good. Wow. I am elated. Woo! One thing I do want to say, because nothing has changed, I think I said a few weeks ago, I wish someone would call in and be like, oh man, this book is great. You don't know what you're talking about, Gus. I mean, Negro is a term of endearment. I call all of my friends Negro. I call my mom a Negro. I'm like, okay, that is fine. I did say, I wish someone would call in for this here book that I have had to sit through and narrate and read. Woo! I'm so glad to be done. I'm so glad to be done. I'm so glad to be done. They're better books that we could read. There's no reason in 2020 to have to strain and fight and struggle to see if I can extract constructive information from a text, and paragraph after paragraph I got to dodge name calling and typos, and you can't even get the title of the subchapter correct. You can't even get the typos there, whether it's supposed to be liver or lover. You can't even get the components of the brain named accurately in the text, and then you're going to have the audacity to talk about how dumb and ignorant everybody is. We can do better. We can do better. Strive for accuracy. I will say it again. Strive for accuracy. We will wrap this up next week and hopefully move on to a much better book. Incidentally, I'm going to read the comment next week, but someone had the audacity to say that Gus T is hard on black authors, especially critical of black authors. The first thing I said was Gus T has hosted a book club for a decade. I don't know how many people have hosted a book club for a decade, but I have. We have read a lot of black authors over that time. I don't think I have sat around and called them all names and said all of their books suck. I don't think anybody heard when we read Medical Apartheid, Gus T saying, wow, this is a coon here, this Harriet A. I don't think that happens. We read 2 of her books. I don't think that happened either time. Me sitting around and complaining and saying it was wretched and terrible and I hated it. I don't think that happened. Dr. Sylvia Hood Washington, we didn't just read her book in the book club. We had her on the program afterward. I don't think I sat, you hussy, that is the worst book ever. I don't think that happened. We have read some books written by black authors that I have loathed. Absolutely. The Hate You Give. Black Love is a Revolutionary Act. Wretched of the Earth. There have been quite a few, but I mean, we've had a book club for a decade, so we've read a lot of books. Some of them have not been good, written by black people. If anything, I would hope, particularly because some of the books that I have hated the most are beloved. Like, oh my gosh, The Hate You Give is a bestseller. They made a movie out of it, for goodness sake. Wretched of the Earth, like Frantz Fanon, is way more popular and beloved than I am by white people and victims of racism. I'm saying, pause for 1 second right there. Some of the very books that people turn to, even black people, even black people, even black people that we turn to and say, wow, these are incredible books that tell us so much about racism, white supremacy, are totally wrong. In this case, trash. But many of them, like, wow, this is a book that people run around and say, oh man, you got to read this. If you want to understand racism, you got to read The Hate You Give. Oh man, you want to understand why the Negroes are running around and, oh, you got to read Frantz Fanon, Wretched of the Earth. Oh yeah. Well, I can give you my assessment of it. We've done that. Both of those books, and they do not help you understand racism, white supremacy accurately at all. Not even close. And cowbell on both of those. In the archives, you can go back and get the detail why. But being able to read critically is important. Extremely important. Words are important in the system of racism, white supremacy, and white people do a really good job of promoting incorrect information, false concepts, incorrect ways of thinking about white supremacy, racism. It is very important to be able to accurately process that information when you read a book about racism or a book about anything. Hopefully we have helped folks become better readers, more critical comprehenders when they read literature through the book club. And I was going to say hopefully, but I mean, I'm appalled. I think we have helped 1 or 10, maybe more, black people find a book or 5 written by a black author that I didn't think was terrible. Just maybe. Even forget the book club. Let's scrap the decade of the book club. We've had a lot of black authors on the program. I think we've managed to have enough of them on where I didn't call them a coon or a nutritional Uncle Tom, and might have even had something constructive to say about what they have written over the years. Just maybe. Just maybe. Reading more important than watching television. Absolutely. Although I would much rather be watching television than reading this book. Believe. We will be here tomorrow, 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific, neutralizing workplace racism. Whew, man, you talk about disruptive. The protests have disrupted work for some black people. COVID-19 continues to disrupt work for black people. 2020 has been a rough one in many accounts. Can't even get a good book in the book club. But we will try to make sense and see if we can get through this as best we can. We'll be here tomorrow, 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific. Much obliged for the folks who tuned in. Hope it was worthy of your time and energy. This Thursday evening, we could have been out protesting in the streets or, doing all kinds of things. Sobriety would be best under conditions of white supremacy racism. We will need our brain computer working at maximum efficiency to solve this problem. In addition to being sober, if you're going out, and I still have the same recommendation, I know a lot of things are opening up and it's getting warm, summer is actually coming and all that good stuff, whoopee. I would still recommend being in the house. They have been protesting, they have curfews in a lot of places, enforcement officials are out, they are armed and excited because of everything that's been going on the past week or so. You still got the rona, allegedly. They still have lockdown and restrictions in many areas. It's just not a good time to be out gallivanting because sometimes some of the people who end up getting injured or tear gassed or whatever it is, they weren't even protesting. They were just out, trying to get a cheeseburger or trying to get groceries, trying to get that spinach. I would recommend being real strategic. If you're going to go out, I'm going to these specific places. I'm not hanging around. I'm being alert. I'm paying attention. If it looks like, I'm hearing sirens or, things are a little chaotic, and scrap this, we'll try it again. Just not taking any chances. It's just too much going on. And it's a lot of people armed. I've seen that where folks, they said it was some situation, I forgot which state it was, but it was within all these protests and things. It was a victim. They were out protesting or whatever you want to call it, and it was a white person in a vehicle, got aggressive with them, and they approached this person. It turned out he had a firearm. A lot of these white people are armed. While they're out doing whatever they're doing, they might be with you protesting. They might be yelling against you. They might be an enforcement officer. It is a very dangerous situation. If you don't have to be out, I would recommend staying in. Do something constructive. Get some reading done. Focus on, some constructive, healthy cooking. Eat some raw veggies. Look up some recipes, whatever. But if you got to go out, it'd be strategic. And you're going to be sober, buckled if you're behind the wheel. You're not on the cell phone. Talked about that, electromagnetic smog, to use Dr. Rasayan's term. You just don't want to take any chances and don't want any reason to draw unnecessary attention from any race soldiers, badge or no. And there are a whole lot of them with no badge, but they got a gun. That is more than enough. That's it, Creator. We ask that you help us remain patient with other black people, victims of white supremacy. We ask that you help us remain patient with ourselves. Remind us to demonstrate the highest levels of black self-respect at all times, in all places, each and every time we are in contact with another black person. No name calling. No name calling, particularly if you're going to write a book. If I get that one extra, if you're going to write a book, don't name call black people in your book. It might look especially bad if you name call a black person and they die, and then you're name calling a dead black person. It might sound very different name calling that black person alive, which still shouldn't be done, and then you're calling someone a coon who died a little bit too young, and people are a little down about that. Might not be a good look. Cal signing out. Thanks all for tuning in.